Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Justin doesn't really know what he's doing, but let's watch him try and figure it out anyway. Let's see how far chat can get him off topic. Tonight, I thought we would look at Dockerizing Metasploit framework, which I hope to achieve a few goals with, which are listed down in the description if you want to keep up and tick them off as I go. Voice and music is good. Thank you so much, Singularity. I have trust issues with my setup, and I like it when someone lets me know that I can be heard. So the description, I'll just read the description because I spent a lot of time actually writing it. I can't even see the description from the dashboard. Not even. To go to my actual channel. Tonight we're Dockerizing Metasploit framework. So the goals for this tonight are going to be to learn how to, first of all, we should probably do a little bit of a recap of Docker. I have done a stream on Docker in the past, but I will forgive you if you weren't here or if you've forgotten how Docker generally works since then. But we're going to go through a little bit of an intro as to what is Docker. Then I hope to convey how to Dockerize applications in general. And I'll do that by Dockerizing Metasploit, which has a few bits and pieces involved in actually getting it set up and running. So if you can follow along with how I Dockerize Metasploit, you should be able to apply the same logic to basically any application that you want Dockerized. For more information on how to Dockerize applications, Jesse Frizzell, I have posted this link, Docker applications. I've shown this link many times on stream for a good reason. I think it's a great primer and a bit of inspiration as to exactly what it means. Why did I paste a bunch of hashes? Is my clipboard playing up, or did that just not copy properly? No, I just suck at copying stuff. Enjoy the hashes. This is a good inspiration as to Jess is rad indeed. Lord Parody, good to have you around. Inspiration as to what it means to Dockerize an application, why you'd want to do it, how you'd want to do it, and a few examples of a few different things that Jess has Dockerized. And your options when it comes to running Dockerized applications are twofold. First of all, if someone has already, actually threefold, if someone has already produced a Docker file that describes, for example, if you wanted to Dockerize the Tor browser bundle, that's not a Docker file. Where's the Docker file? Here's the Docker file. Your 404. Jess is rad, but has a couple of 404s on her blog. You can always grab someone else's Docker file, and we'll go into what a Docker file is shortly, but the TLDR of a Docker file is that it describes how to build a image. We'll go through images and containers in brief shortly. So you can always grab someone else's Docker file and use it as is and just do a build across it, or you can tweak it and modify it to suit your needs, and then build it into an image. Alternatively, if someone's publishing a Docker file, then the image is probably available on Docker Hub. For example, let's go the URSI. URSI is an IRC client. A lot of people are always curious as to how I do my Twitch chat like this in a terminal. It's using URSI, the IRC client. For example, URSI. If we just search Docker Hub URSI, here it is. The fact that it's hosted on hub.docker.com means that you can just do a Docker pull URSI, or you can even do a Docker run URSI. And if you don't have an image named URSI in your local Docker repository, Docker, I believe, will automatically go and rip it down for you and then run it. So that's another thing you can do. A Docker image out on Docker Hub is kind of analogous to a binary build of software, whereas a Docker file is more analogous to a source code tarball of software. So a Docker file, you're responsible for building, which is the equivalent of compiling a C-based program. Alternatively, if you don't want to go and build it yourself, you can go and do Docker pull URSI or Docker run URSI, and you will rip down the binary image straight from Docker Hub. Now, out on Docker Hub, things are stored as layers, and so all this neat stuff happens. Dedupe will happen automatically. If you already have some parent image that the Docker file is based on, or even if you happen to have a local image that shares the first couple of lines with someone else's Docker file, you don't need to pull down the image that corresponds to those particular layers if they are actually the same binary build, bit for bit. It'll dedupe stuff and does all sorts of cool stuff, but basically you'll end up pulling down a whole pile of layers straight from Docker Hub and running it. So I think I've covered, that's probably 2. Modify someone's Docker file, optionally, then build it, or get the binary images straight from Docker Hub, which I don't like to do except for the very foundational images. For example, Debian, I'm normally lazy and just get Postgres straight from Docker Hub. I'm normally lazy and just get the Python 2 and Python 3 ones from Docker Hub if I'm doing a Django app or what have you. Not that I do many applications because I mostly just break stuff, but if I want to find out how Django works, I'll pull down the Python 2 image and use that. When it comes to an application like Ursi, I chose a totally different option. I did look at Jess's Docker file for inspiration, but for the most part I actually created my whole own Docker file locally, built it locally, and ran it locally. There's security concerns, as with any supply chain of software, but if you were to pull down this Ursi image, then I think you have to trust Jess to have built it faithfully, and I think Jess has had the option of backdooring that image before pushing it out. I'm sure Jess wouldn't have, but still, if you don't have to trust something, I choose not to trust it. So I just choose to limit my trust down to the Debian image, the Debian repositories of software that you can install stuff from via apt, and then source code out on GitHub, for example. I might pull down some source code and use that, but I prefer not to trust Docker images. That's a personal decision. It also helps me Docker better when I have to actually build these Docker files myself. Man, I don't even know why I started talking about Docker Hub. I'm already off track. What else did I want to do tonight? So yeah, we're going to go through how to Dockerize applications in general, because Metasploit, if you can understand the Metasploit one, then you can probably Dockerize any application you want. Building Docker images like a boss. Gee, I'm a jerk. We will be going through the way in which I locally build my Docker images. We'll be creating a Python script that will do the build for you. You can just do a build on the command line using the Docker client, but I choose to use a Python file because there's some tricky bits and pieces I sometimes shim into my build process, which we'll get to shortly. A bit about how to abuse Docker as if it was virtualization. When I say that, normally a Docker application, a application that you've Dockerized should be the only thing that container runs and nothing else each time you instantiate it. So in this case, if we were to do this properly, we would set the entry point of the container to be MSF console, and as soon as you ran the Docker image as a container, you'd get dropped straight into Metasploit, into MSF console. I choose not to do that. I choose to drop myself into a shell. And that helps if you want to run something like MSF Venom. You don't need to then shell out of MSF console to get to MSF Venom to produce your payloads. It also involves things like using volumes to map directories from your host into a Docker container. So that, for example, Metasploit, you might be on an engagement doing a pen test for a client. And you would have ~engagements/the company name. You may want to spin up Metasploit and kind of use it on that engagement. So you could start up the Docker container, passing through that directory on your file system into the container, which brings up a few questions around things like permissions and file permissions. And we'll get into what I do to account for the way in which Docker uses user IDs and permissions and the way in which it creates files on mapped volumes. The beauty of this is running Metasploit in this way, where you actually have fine-grained control over what data is exposed to any given instance of MSF console. You might be running 5 different engagements simultaneously. Let's just say you could be lazy and run Metasploit on your local host. You could be a bit less lazy and run Metasploit inside Docker and just pass through ~engagements to that container. Or you could be not lazy and only pass through a specific engagement to a certain instance of the container. What this means is that it will help you keep data separate, because you'll have a separate instance of Metasploit console for each engagement that you're doing. And we're not going to, if you do this, you're going to have fun with networking and actually exposing ports from Metasploit. We're not going to get into Docker networking tonight, otherwise we'll be here till midnight. But I'll leave that as the exercise for the reader, and if you find out it's too hard, you can go back to running Metasploit however you like. But it's good because what's Parody got to say? Docker's handy for deliberately untrusted stuff. Exactly. The idea being, in my opinion, oh man, I'm way off in the weeds here, but Docker and containerization is a fairly loose it's a fairly loose sense of isolation. Let's just say Metasploit framework actually had a remotely exploitable bug, and someone was able to, you're attacking client A, and let's just say, for example, and I think pen testers should actually be mindful of things like this and a little bit more conscious of what they're doing. But let's say client A knows about this bug in Metasploit and engages your pen testing company to perform an engagement. They may have the plans to get a pen test done by you purely to compromise you, because they want to go and use their Metasploit bug. You're busy getting shells on them, but through those Meterpreter shells, let's just say, if they can hack back and actually trigger a bug in the way MSF console handles a Meterpreter session, they can shell your box. If you were running Metasploit console on your bare metal host, they get access to your whole file system, and they can read not only all the data about all the different engagements you're performing for all your other customers, but they can read your mail spool. And pen testers have privileged access to a lot of organizations, to basically all their customers. This microphone's drooping. Pen testers have access to basic privileged access to all their clients. That's their job, is to break in. And the idea of one of your customers, that didn't actually help the microphone stand at all. The idea of one of your customers shelling you and then traversing laterally to some of your other clients should scare you. I mean, it would scare me if I was a pen tester, but I'm not a pen tester. I work in application security. So you need to be careful, and Docker provides a way to basically isolate, loosely isolate your MSF console in its own container, so that if you did get just totally hosed and hacked back through your Metasploit shell, the only data that can be gotten to is the data that got explicitly passed into that container via volumes. I swear this is just... Let me prop it up a bit. There we go, let's try that. What I'm trying to say is that containerization may provide a very loose security boundary and force someone to use a kernel bug to actually escape the container. It's not perfect. It's not the same as running a totally different machine for each engagement, a totally different machine for each application. Like, that would be true security, because if someone hacked that, then they only get access to the bare metal box that thing's running on. But at least containerization provides very loose guarantees, very loose suggestions about what they should get access to when they shell you. Hopefully that makes sense as to why I think you should have used Docker as if it was virtualization. We're not actually running microservices in the data center. We're running full-blown applications in a very interactive manner with a bash shell running behind it that you can kind of control Z out if you Metasploit into a bash shell, or you can run tmux inside Docker, and then inside tmux you can run Metasploit and a whole bunch of other stuff. I think it's a good way to work. It loosely separates different things you're doing. To do that, we're going to need to learn how to pass through volumes and how to account for the fact that permissions might get wonky, but not permissions, file ownership. We'll go through that. Lucky Metasploit Pro has no vulnerabilities then, I guess. Exactly. Singularity. And I would not be surprised to find out that Metasploit framework has bugs as well. Software security is hard, so you should not trust that all the software you run is secure, and you should try to account for that and try to make compromising you more expensive if possible. Exactly. It's not to be mistaken for security. CGRIPs are great. CGRIPs is what containerization is based on. But at the very least, it can kind of stop smash and grab malware from being able to see stuff unless it brings its own kernel bug to the party. And it means that people need to use a kernel bug, which are abundant, but I think it's better than doing nothing, and it's much better than running Metasploit on the host as root, because that's bad. We're also going to use this exercise to learn how to actually run Metasploit straight off of the GitHub repo, which means that you get totally bleeding edge code once a module lands. For a hot new 0-day or end day, you don't need to wait for example, if you run Kali, I don't fully understand how the update process works for Metasploit. Back from when I used to use Kali, it felt as though maybe there was like a weekly update, and every week the whole entire framework would kind of get captured and then pushed out as a .deb file for you to update through apt-get upgrade, which sucks for a couple of reasons. First of all, you got to wait up to a week to get updates, and second of all, the updates are massive. Like, for the whole platform, the whole framework to be basically debbed up and sent to you each week your update is enough to install it fresh. So each week you're getting the whole thing over and over again, and it's a couple hundred megs. With Git, you only need to download what has changed since you last updated, so it's super quick updates. It's bleeding edge, and it means that you can actually start contributing to the framework. If you've got a hot new module that you've created, if you run your Metasploit straight off of Git, you're literally a couple of commands away from contributing that back to the framework. If you found a bug in Metasploit, you're a couple of commands away from actually offering the fix to the project for consumption. And finally, we'll be going through how to manage rubies with rbenv. Rbenv is a new thing to me. I've been using it for a couple of weeks now, couple of months. It's a replacement for something called RVM. RVM to me feels very heavyweight, and I like the sound of rbenv. It's much lighter weight, and it just feels a lot more Unixy and more along the lines of how I like to use my tools. So I've switched, and this for me is going to be an exercise in relearning how I actually installed that, so that I can learn more about how to actually tie it up properly. I did indeed menstrual. I upgraded my mic. This is geez, Menstrual, you're in trouble now. I upgraded the mic probably like 2 months ago now, so this kind of goes to show how long it's been since you popped in. It's good to have you back, Menstrual. I heard you don't have these problems with Red Hat. Which problems? Like the packaging and... Oh, okay. Do RPMs let you do like piecemeal updates and not have to download the whole framework? Is that the problems you're referring to? Menstrual's backpedaling now. We should probably... hey Jeff, how's it going? Just deb files in general. Yeah, I've never had to build a deb file, and the longer I can keep it that way, I dare say the better. I dare say that makes for a happy person, not building deb files. We should probably just get started. Alright, one last thing. I've got a Mars bar in the fridge for my dessert. Only once you think I've earned a Mars bar, and there's a consensus in chat that I've earned a Mars bar, will I actually take a break. I'll be taking breaks regardless because I need like water because it's a bajillion degrees here. But only once you kind of think I've deserved a Mars bar will I eat my Mars bar. How it works is if you don't think I've earned my Mars bar by the end of the night, the Mars bar jackpots, and next stream there'll be 2 Mars bars, and then it'll just keep on rolling over. It won't. I'll eat the Mars bar before next stream. I'm a package user, not a manager. Indeed. Let's do some stuff. We should probably explain what Docker is. I'll give a 2-minute... I'll try my best to keep this to 2 minutes to avoid getting off into the weeds about Docker. But Docker is containerization. Did I actually hit start recording? Yes, I did. Good. Just checking. Docker is containerization. It's kind of like virtualization, but it's really not. Best way to describe it is it virtualizes the file system. And it provides resource quotering, like you can say this particular group of applications can use that much CPU. I don't use that. I'm sure it's probably great in the data center. It lets you break down your application into microservices and host them really agilely and hip web 3.0 and stuff. What it comes down to is you either pull down a Docker file from the internet. And for example, let's just do sudo -g docker run -ti Debian bash. So there's an image out on Docker Hub called Debian. So images are kind of like templates, right? And when you instantiate a template or an image using Docker run, ignore this, ignore that. When you instantiate a image using Docker run, it then becomes what's known as a container. So the container has what looks to be files in it. Not many. Like it's Docker images are generally pretty lightweight. And if you remove files from here, then nothing bad's going to happen to your host. You're actually running as root inside the container, but you're not actually root on the box, even though any processes that run, for example, ping-n127.0.1. So ping is running. Ping is a child of bash. So we had bash running here, and then bash has a child process of ping. So these two processes are now running inside this container. It's kind of like a whole Linux system with only two processes running. There's no systemd, there's no cron, there's no syslog, there's no other nonsense. It's super lightweight, only a couple of processes running. The main difference between virtualization and containerization is that these processes are actually running on my machine's kernel alongside all the other processes, but kind of like quarantined off in its own little world. So if you run ps-ef, you can see that there's currently two processes running, bash and ps. And if I did ps-ef on my host, I don't believe you'd see these processes. I think you may be able to do some special trick to be able to see them. So it kind of feels like a virtual machine. It's isolated. There's virtual networking. There's the things you kind of expect from a VM. But there's only one kernel running, and the kernel's shared by the host's kernel is shared by this container. It's kind of all there is to it, except Docker provides a whole bunch of really lovely management-ish kind of things that make containerization pretty simple. Docker lets you pull down things like the Debian base image from Docker Hub. Docker lets you write Docker files, which are basically a recipe, a really easy to read and write recipe for how to build a container, an image, layer by layer. So you go from Debian, do this, do that, and when you then build that image, you can then run that, and it'll have only the applications and only the changes that you explicitly mentioned inside that Docker file to be there. Only those will be there. I think that kind of covers what Docker is. I think the rest of it really kind of should be made apparent as we go through the evening and do some more stuff. Does anyone have any better definitions of what Docker is? You're giving people on the internet the opportunity to... Yeah, the Mars bar, yes, I am. But I trust you. I trust you all. Nah, parody you can get out. Mars bars for the win. Anyone trying to teach Docker deserves a Mars bar. Thank you, Menstrual. Listano, good to have you around. Good to have you around. You haven't missed much. We've only really just defined the goals for the evening and defined Docker. Let's do some stuff. By the way, this is a Docker container. And this here runs inside that container as well. When I stream, I try to keep everything trapped in a container to minimize the potential of leaking my secrets on stream. CD Twitch. Let's make directory Dockerizing Metasploit. Let's just go and lump everything in here that we're going to work on. So we're going to start off with a Docker file from Debian. With Debian, you can do different releases. They're called tags, I think. So you do Debian is the name, and then you do colon. You can do colon Jesse or latest, and they're basically the same thing. You got Jesse backports. You've got the important ones would be latest is kind of, I think, the default when you kind of don't specify anything, which is Jesse, which is actually the same as stable, except there's some small semantic differences between them. But right now, Jesse is stable. That will change in the future, though, and I guess stable. If you have a stable Docker file, it will actually continue to stay on stable as new stables come out, whereas Jesse will always be Jesse and will eventually fall by the wayside. Stretch is testing. I think stretch is in testing. Wheezy's the old one. So stretch and testing are the same thing. And then you got unstable, which is SID, also known as SID. So you can always pick if you want to actually run testing to get newer packages, because Debian notoriously has very old stuff in the package repositories for stability's sake. And when Debian says stable, by the way, if you've ever wondered this, Debian stable doesn't mean it's not going to crash. Stable doesn't actually refer to the reliability of the system on which it's installed. Stable refers to the fact that the state of the distro and the state of all the packages that are published and usable or installable via apt are stable and don't change much. Which means that as soon as Debian's stable, currently stretch is in testing. So as soon as stretch goes stable, Jesse will become known as old stable, and stretch will become known as stable. As soon as that happens, the version of Nginx that is available on stretch is all that stretch is ever going to get. It's never going to get an update to Nginx, or Apache, or Tmux, or Bash, or what have you. When I say it won't get a version update, it'll get updates, but it won't get a version update. So it won't actually get the new feature updates. It will only get bug fixes. So if there's a performance bug, stability bug, usability bug, or a security bug, stable will get those fixes. They become backported into the version of Nginx that Debian stable was released with. So because of that, it's really good for servers, because on a server, like you might think that, yeah, a new version of Nginx has cool features, I kind of want them. You might. But on the other hand, you kind of don't want your servers to have a new feature without you doing the testing to make sure your application works on that, to make sure it's ready for use in your business cases. You don't want new features hitting your servers overnight. You want to be able to test those feature releases. So that's good for servers. If you like to tinker, if you like the latest features on your little toy server or in your lab or on your desktop, you're not going to get them with Debian stable. So you may want to go testing to get kind of the newest features in the packages and not get packages that are a couple of years old. It's kind of up to you. It's a trade-off when you go testing, because testing is the last Debian release to get security fixes and some other issues with testing. I'm starting to think, I run testing, Debian testing on my laptop. I'm thinking next time I reinstall, I'm going to keep it at stable. And if there's a application that I want the very latest and greatest version of, I will just Dockerize it and run it inside containers and run Debian testing inside the container and get the latest and greatest version of whatever it is that I want the features of. I'm thinking that's the way to go. But that's down the track for me. You don't remember testing in Toy Story. Yes, indeed, Jardes, they are. They're named after Toy Story characters. Fun story, fun fact. So how packages go is as soon as they're updated, they go into unstable for a couple of days until people kind of stop reporting bugs and stop saying, hey, this broke all my shit, and then it goes into testing. And then it kind of sits in testing until the Debian timeline moves along and kind of freezes testing and goes, all right, cool, anything that's in here now stays. So packages flow from unstable to testing. So unstable is where brand new changes go to break stuff. Unstable's code name is SID. And if you remember Toy Story, if you remember your Toy Story canon, Sid was that menacing kid next door who wrecked all of his shit. And Sid was a very unstable person, or an unstable boy. That's why Sid is unstable. Do you have any non-secret Docker files you'd be able to provide to those who might want to look at doing binary stuff inside containers? No. I don't. Sorry, Menstrual. Indeed, singularity. It's not that my Docker files are necessarily secret. I would have to go and kind of pick some personal stuff out of them before I release them, but it's also that I don't want to maintain them, and I don't want to encourage people to pick up my bad habits. They should pick up my bad habits on their own. I might look at it one day in the future, or I might just, if you're curious, hit me up and I'll let you know the sort of software I use. Mind you, if you watch my streams, you should see the software I use, which is mostly GDB, Peta, Pwn Tools. I use IDA over on Windows. If you want to get into binary, those are basically the 4 tools I'd recommend. You can swap out IDA for Binary Ninja, which is a bit cheaper. You can swap it out for Radar 2, which is free but kind of hard to use. Otherwise, GDB, Peta, Vim, Python, Pwn Tools. That's really all I use to do my binary stuff. For binary stuff, I use Vagrant instead of Docker. Yeah, very cool. Parody, let's catch up at the pub sometime. I've never used Vagrant, so I'm curious to hear how you find it. Alright, Docker file from Debian. We're not going to do testing, we'll just go from Debian. So inside a Docker file you can do things like from Debian, run, touch, /doot. So this is a Docker file. I will need the reference material. Docker file reference. This is a fantastic document. You should keep it open in a tab while you're doing Docker file stuff. So as for these keywords here, they all are here, so you can read more about how the from works here. As for run will just basically run the commands in a new layer on top of the current image and commit the results. Docker images and ogres are like onions. They're built in layers. So each time you do something like this here from Debian, doesn't really create a layer, it just says, hey, pick up where the Debian image left off with its uppermost layer. And then do this, and basically every time you create a new layer within a Docker image, it's basically diffing the file system. So what it will actually do is, before it runs something like this, it will spin up the image as of the layers so far as a container, run this, shut the container down, look at what changed on the file system, capture it, and the new layer is basically just the delta between the state of the file system before and the state of the file system after. So for that reason, there's another good guide you should read, which is Dockerfile Best Practices. Which discusses some things like minimizing the number of layers. Because I'm guessing the runtime complexity, if you're actually running an image that's made up of like 1,000 layers, which are all stored in different parts of the file system, based on what part of the file system inside the container you're accessing, it's got to go to somewhere else on the host to get the files. I'm guessing the more layers you've got, the more of a pain in the butthole it is for Docker to actually run the goddamn thing. So keep them to a minimum. And actually we'll get to the and a bit later. But anyway, here's a really simple Docker file. From Debian, just run touch /doot. So now what we can do is Docker build blah blah blah. Now you can do, actually we can't do Docker build inside Docker, we'll have to jump outside the container. Twitch Dockerizing. You can put yourself in what's known as the Docker group. So there is a group, when you install Docker, a group on your machine gets created. You can go and put yourself inside that group, and it means that you can do Docker things. For example, Docker run -ti Debian, like we did before when we actually ran this here, bash. If you put yourself in the Docker group, then you can do this for free. You can do Docker run Debian bash, and it will actually start up a container for you. But it's a bad idea, because if you can do Docker stuff on a machine, you've got root on that machine. Because you can do tricks, you can do tricky things. You could run just like this, Docker run -ti Debian bash, but you could pass a dash, I think it's -- volume for the long form way of doing it. Volume equals /:doot. What this will do is when it runs this Debian container, actually we can No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to run this. What this will do is inside the Debian container /doot will be a mapping to the hosts /. And as we saw before, we were actually running as root inside the container. So if you were to then spin that container up just like that and drop a backdoor suid binary in the host's file system, or edit the host file system's etc password, or do any of a million nasty things to the file system, and then you leave the container, those things will actually be on the host's file system, and you can get to root. Which isn't really a big deal in like a desktop situation, but on a server, that's bad. If you wanted your developers to be able to spin up Docker containers, but you didn't want them to actually go rooting the host, then you shouldn't put them in the Docker group. You actually can't give them access to the Docker daemon, or they can fuck shit up. So, surprise! What I'd prefer to do is actually force myself to sudo -d docker, not -d, -g, and use sudo powers to temporarily put myself in the Docker group before running this. Because sudo will prompt me for my password, so that way if someone shells my box, being in the Docker group it takes away that very easy way of escalating to root. So if you go ID, you'll see that I am not in the Docker group. If you do sudo -g docker, sudo -g docker ID, I get prompted for my password. And there you go. I'm now in the Docker group, and being in the Docker group gives me permission to go and talk to the Docker daemon via the socket. I don't know why I got off on that rant. Oh yeah, because I was talking about how to build stuff. Yeah, I was saying don't do that. Take yourself out of the Docker group, because it means you can escalate to root without a password, which is bad. Now how do we build stuff? I actually normally create scripts to do this for me. I think it's sudo -g docker build. I don't know, -h. Do we need any of these? That's going to be useful later. We don't need any of these. Actually, we do need -t. Yeah. So we're going to do docker build -t the Justin Stephen, put it in its own namespace for tonight, /Metasploit. We've got to give it a path as well, dot. Yeah, there we go. So now what this means is that when you create Docker images, you can just call it things like Debian, or you can actually go and put your name here and put it inside your own namespace. So that way it kind of quarantines it off from the rest of the things on your system. Because now when I look at my Docker images, I can do sudo docker images. I've got trust issues, so I'm gonna do this. I don't want to show my images on stream. Bear with me one sec. Sudo docker images grep the Justin Stephen. Oop, it helps to actually put the word Docker in. Yeah, there we go, cool. Actually, no, I won't bother. So, yeah, the crappy thing about doing this sudo thing is I always do sudo -g and docker and then think I can go straight into images, but now you got to do -g docker for the group and then docker again. So here's an example. Here's a built image. It was built 39 seconds ago. It's 123 megabytes small. Here's its ID. And here's the name of it, and by putting the Justin Stephen there, if it was just Metasploit, I'd go, did I download this from Docker Hub? But by putting my name there, I know it's mine. Just something I like to do. And I think something a lot of people like to do. I think it's actually a recommended thing to do that. So now what we can do is we can actually run our brand new image. Sudo -g docker run -ti. I'll talk about ti in a second. Copy paste this, bash. TI, -ti is a magic little thing for when you want to run something like bash or another interactive program. Whack a -ti there. Docker expects you to be starting up things like daemons. not interactive programs. So you need to tell it to actually allocate a sudo tty and make it interactive. So I think the T is for sudo tty and the I is for interactive. Otherwise, if you leave this out, I'll show you what happens. Your prompt just comes back straight away. But the fact that this little percentage is green means that this exited successfully. It just doesn't seem to do anything. Whereas if you put -ti, you can actually interact with the bash. And the bash has a sudo tty allocated, so it can actually talk to you. ls-la/, and here is our doot file. It's owned by root. So again, when you create files inside a Docker container, I mean, I am root right now inside the container. So files get created as root, which can be a bit of a pain in the butthole, as we'll see shortly. And it also gives rise to that whole security thing from before. Alright, so that's a pretty useless container. It's just got doot in the root, but it kind of goes to show how these Docker files actually build up a sequence of commands and build layers of an image. Okay, now what I'm going to do quickly, actually while I find some other stuff to rant about, I should have done this sooner. Twitch, Metasploit. No, Dockerizing Metasploit. Let's quickly go and pinch GitHub Metasploit. Let's go and download Metasploit because it takes a while. Git clone. Can't type with the microphone in front of my face. Alright, so that's gonna, if you head to GitHub Metasploit framework and hit the clone or download button and copy this here. If you haven't used Git before, you copy that. You do git clone the URL, and it will actually download not only the current state of Metasploit, but also all of the history forever that exists within the framework and within the project. So running off Git is really cool because when you want to do an update, it only downloads the files that have changed. And also, you can go and spy on every single change to every single file ever, and actually look at how the thing was built. If you're kind of brushing up against a bug that you're like, this wasn't here last week, you can actually, if you can find the bit of code that's responsible, you can look at the history of that particular file and look back at the commit and look at who broke it on you. So you can do a lot of cool stuff once you've actually got a clone of the entire Git repository. Git's pretty cool. Is everyone following along? Am I too far off in the weeds? Should we get on with this? Yeah, very cool. Oh yeah, nice. Yeah, over a beer parody. Let me know how you're going with that. Oh yeah. Yes. Wondering how long it would take. Oh, Mars bar already. Fantastic. What did I show? What did I show on stream? These are all jerks. Every single one of you. So that's probably downloading. How it's downloading. Well, another thing we'll be referring to a lot tonight, I'll pull it up now, is the Metasploit dev guide. The guide for installing, setting up a dev environment. So according to this intro here, you should only set up a dev environment when you want to actually contribute to Metasploit. I don't know. I think by actually running it out of the dev setup, it doesn't at all impact the way that you would use it if you want to do pen testing or you want to do the needful with it. It won't get in your way, I find. I've found it's never gotten in my way. Except for the fact that you have to update the gems and you have to update Ruby as soon as they bump a version, and you have to look after yourself. But it's not hard once you've got something like rbenv doing it for you. For all the reasons mentioned above, the updates are smaller. You get to run on the bleeding edge and experience all the bugs. But experiencing all the bugs is good because you can actually report it before they go and cut a Kali release and frustrate all the noobs who don't know how to actually figure out what's going on and why it's breaking. You can do bug testing and actually log issues and help the project with running off bleeding edge. Up to you. I mean, you may watch tonight and just appreciate the Docker stuff, but have no willingness to run the dev version of Metasploit, I think it's worth doing. It looks like a bit of a beast of a guide, but we'll work through this pretty quickly, I think. Alright, cool, so we've downloaded Metasploit, DUHS Metasploit. So the git clone is 300 megs. All the git metadata that comes with it is actually almost all of that. But that's what gives you the ability to go and look back at the history, and actually you can offline revert to any state that Metasploit has been in ever, except if you're offline, you won't be able to then get the gems that were needed back at that point in time at which you reverted back to. Oh hey Mars bars, I'm planning on eating a Mars bar shortly. Menstrual reckons I've earned it with the volume stuff, but I don't know, that feels cheap. My snack has arrived. Welcome Mars bars. We should probably, you know what, I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break. I'm not going to grab that Mars bar just yet. I'm going to take a quick 5-minute breather and think about how we're going to tackle doing this, because I didn't think this far ahead. But we should probably start doing and stop talking. So if you need to grab a glass of water or an adult beverage or what have you, now is the time. We'll reconvene in a couple of minutes. Alright, that was a short break. Let's crack on. I just realised I've spent almost an hour waffling and getting nothing done. So we should probably actually work on some stuff. What I want to do now is quickly go in and bash out a Python script that will do that build for us, because remembering this, nope. Oh, it's not in, that should probably be in tmux. Remembering this each time kind of sucks. So let's go and copy that. Let's vim build let's go here, build.py. We want to basically create a script that'll do that for us. And that may seem like overkill. You may just want to kind of save that in a text file and copy paste it each time, or write a shell script that does exactly that. But there's a reason for creating a Python script. It has been a place at which I like to put certain things that I like to do on each build. For example, you could have a runtime flag that will choose to do it clean or not, and we'll get on to clean in a second. You could have another flag which says, hey, go and pull the latest version of Metasploit before you do the build. I'm getting ahead of myself. There's a reason why that is actually... I'm getting ahead of myself, but let's create the Python script. Let's create a very basic Python script now. We can add to it later if we need to. What I'm going to do is tmux session Twitch. Python script to do this. Shebang. User bin env python 3. Import sub process. I can't remember how to do sub process off the top of my head. I normally just have a build.py that I copy paste between everywhere. Python sub process. We're going to learn a whole bunch of little bits of a whole bunch of little things. Where's Python 3? Here it is. Tonight, and how to do sub processes. You should never do things like system. System is awful. What you could almost do is import OS and go os.system that, and then you could kind of intersperse options and strings within this string here, and that would work. But system sucks. Don't ever use system, because shell meta characters are hard to account for, and actually and quoting your own strings and making sure argv is right is blah. So always do a properly parameterized exec style execution. I think it's subprocess.checkOutput. Yeah, so run a command with arguments and return its output. If the return code was non-zero, it raises a called process error, which sounds like a good thing to do. If there's an error, we probably want an exception to be chucked. Blah 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 blah. Captures stood error. Blah blah blah. Actually, no, we don't want check output. What do I normally use to do execs in Python? Call? Yeah, call. Subprocess.call. Run the command described by args, and args is a list. Wait for command to complete, then return the return code attribute. Yeah, subprocess.call. Cool. So we've got subprocess. Now we're going to do subprocess.call, and we can't really just do this. I don't think it's actually going to work at all. You need to actually create a list of strings, which is good because it lets you have fine-grained control over what's actually a string and what's not, and what's a separate part of it. You've got to do this and then blah blah blah. So what we're going to do is create a new list called argv, and grab this, indent it. I'm sure there's a quicker way of vimming, but I'm just going to quickly try and type with the microphone in front of my face. Build -t. Actually, let's join these because they kind of go together. Sudo -g docker build -t. This is the tag, and then the path to the thing we're building is dot. So all the Docker file and stuff will be in the current directory. Now instead of hard coding this here, let's go and pull that out up here. Namespace is the Justin Stephen. Image name equals Metasploit. So we just go and pull each of these out, put them in their own string up here. What we can do here is something slash something dot format namespace image name. Good evening, M113V. We're working on Dockerizing Metasploit. There's some details in the description below as to what we're doing. Vim indeed. If anyone's curious about the software I run, it's almost all down below. Old mate, yes, I've been using Docker Compose to do challenges lately. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, no, I've been using Docker Compose, but... Yeah, the YAML file. Yeah, cool. I've been using... I think Docker Compose's value proposition is when you've got multiple containers that need to all be spun up at the same time. We're really just working with a single one-off container, but Docker Compose is great for when you need multiple containers spun up at once. So we're going to do sudo in the group docker build. This is the tag. It's Justin Stevens / Metasploit, and the path to what's being built is dot. And then if we go and copy this build script and we wanted to later on have the Justin Stevens / Ursi, just change that, and it changes everything in here that needs to be changed. Magic strings are bad. Let's go and pull them out as much as possible. One last thing, dot. So what the dot means is, I'm gonna turn this off while I access my history and get back to that build. Yeah, there we go. I'm very nervous doing stuff because this is actually my host, and files and bash history and stuff on here could be embarrassing. This dot is what is the path to the Docker file, I believe. But I believe that there's something different called the build context. And I don't think this is actually the path to the build context. Docker build. Path. What does path refer to? Path to the Docker file to use. Blah, 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 blah. Must be... Path is relative. You're building from a local directory. Yeah, so the build context is something totally different to this path. The build context. When you do Docker build, the entire contents of the directory that you're currently in will get sent to the daemon. It'll actually kind of get serialized in some format. All the contents of all the files in every directory, all the way down recursively in the current directory gets actually transmitted to the daemon, because the daemon will actually have access to the build context. There may be Dockerfile build directives, Dockerfile directives that say, hey, copy a file from the current directory into a particular place inside the image. And so for Docker to be able to get access to the current directory, Docker build will actually transmit all the contents of the current directory to the daemon when you do the build, which is something you don't really kind of need to keep in mind. If you're doing this Docker build business, you don't really need to be aware of that detail, except for the fact that if you've got a huge amount of stuff in the current directory, then it will make your build slower because it has to send all that data to the daemon. The daemon's on localhost, but it still takes time. But if we're going to create a script, then this script, you may be sitting in your home directory and do ~twitch/dockerize_msf/build.py. You may run it from anywhere. And if you're in the wrong directory, then this dot won't make sense, and the build context will be the wrong build context. So we need to actually change our current directory into the build context in this script, which is easily done. I just can't remember how to do it. Python get script directory. If I had $1 for every time I've Googled this, I'd have at least $20. This is it here. And you wonder why I have to Google it each time instead of committing it to memory. Let's go import OS. How do we Python change directory os.chdir. So let's go os.chdir Bam. CD to build context. So what this is going to do is when the Python script hits this, it's going to change directory to the directory name of the real path of underscore underscore file underscore underscore. What this means is within the context of this Python script executing, it will change directory to the directory that the Python script is saved in. So you've got to save the Python script in the same directory as what you want the build context to be. And when the Python script finishes, that OS chdir will go away. You won't actually change directory. So I'm going to chdir, we're going to do the argv stuff, and then we're going to do subprocess.call argv. And that's really all there is to it. But this being a Python script means we can put a whole bunch of optional logic, and we can pull in something like argparse to parse command line arguments if we need to. So this is a pretty good place to be. So we'll save that. We'll chmod u plus x the build script, and if we run the build script, we get a syntax error, line 16. Missing comma at the end of this line here. Did I not save it? Why is there a round bracket there? There we go, so we get prompted for our password because we're doing a sudo. And then it does this sending the build context to the Docker daemon, and what it's doing is it's actually uploading the entire Metasploit framework directory to the Docker daemon. And then it really quickly does what we just did, because when you build Docker images, the cache gets hit, and each layer from when you previously built the thing can be reused if it's being reused. I mean, if we were to go and append to this, run touch /doot2, then the build can kind of pick up from the last most non-changed line, which in this case is this one here, and just do this atop of that layer there. If we took the doot2 and put it above the doot, then it would need to start from the output of this line, and then do that, and then do that one there. So the cache is super useful while you're developing. If you want to save time, see if you can maximize the use of that cache as much as possible. Try to avoid changing things too early on in the Docker file, and try and do your stuff at the end. And then once you kind of got the Docker file working, then reshuffle it for optimizing the number of layers. Cool. All right, so we've got a build script. We should probably also create an instantiate script. Vim. No, we don't want to do it here. Edit instantiate.py. We can borrow almost all of this file. We don't need to chdir anymore. We still need namespace and image name. Sudo -g docker run instead of build -ti for the interactive thing. We still need the image name, which is the namespace /image name. We don't need the dot. We don't need that comma. And for now, let's just go and add in bash. And we're done. Instantiate script written. Easy. Chmod u plus x instantiate. Run the instantiate script. There we go. And there is our doot file. So that's a really quick way to build and then instantiate. You don't need to remember docker run blah 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 blah. You just run instantiate.py, boom, drops you into a container. And being a Python script, we can start to do some really cool logic stuff later on with command line arguments and blah 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 blah. So that's kind of neat. Missing anything in chat? Thanks, Menstrual. I am saying daemon. Yeah, I'm saying daemon. Let's do a straw poll. Who says daemon and who says daemon? I'm curious. I've always said daemon. but I will gladly be corrected and then struggle to fix my ways if I've been wrong. Cool, we're doing laptop talks. Alrighty, if anyone needs my so we got a daemon, we got a thanks Kane. we got a daemon and a daemon. I think we're almost evenly split on daemon versus daemon. Daemon and daemon both sound like made up words now. Kane, good to have you around. Welcome, dude. Welcome. What are we doing with our lives? I was gonna say something and do something until I heard the word demon versus daemon. We've got a build in there instantiate. That'll do for now. So we're gonna get rid of the touch doot from Debian. Let's go start actually putting in place the dev guide here. So let's assume we've got a Debian-based Linux environment. Check. You've got a user that is not root. We need to do that. That's actually something very important for the way that I use Docker when I'm running desktop applications in a desktop sense. I make sure that I do it as my user ID. So we need to run user add and user add. Is -m the default these days? Okay, I'm going to put it in explicitly. So -m creates the user's home directory if it doesn't exist. So I'm going to do user add -m. Actually, first I'm going to do group add. I'm going to create a username Justin and a group name Justin with the same UID and GID that I have on my host, which is 31337, because if you're not changing the user ID to something cute, I don't know why. So I'm going to do a run group add Justin. How do we set the group ID? --GID 31337 Justin. And if that succeeds, then we do user add. So we've got the -m for create a home directory. Can we specify a UID? --UID 31337. Can we specify a group? Group name or number of the user's initial login group. The group name must exist. That's why I did this group add here. So we're going to do --GID 31337 Justin. That should create the user in the group for us. Now we've been saying, Kane, is this actually Unicode? Is that me and my laziness for actually having a non-Unicode font messing with us? Chat is always, continuing to help Justin stay on important topics indeed. Show him how to apt without losing cache. How to apt without losing the cache? Kane, do you mean being able to rebuild the Docker file and not have apt redo stuff? Failed sleep? No, I'm not. This is Linux on the desktop because I'm a masochist like that. Yep, thanks Kane. Update install with a... Otherwise it runs each time because reasons. I don't know why it would run each time, but I always do the and. We've got the start of the and. I'll explain the and, so that's a good point. Yeah, failed sleep. Debian on the desktop. Debian inside Docker. Windows inside VirtualBox when I need it. Update install with an and. Otherwise it runs each time. Why would it run each time? I'll take your word for it. Only real programmers use Linux. Linux is my IDE. So now I'm going to do user Justin to actually switch from being root to being Justin. I'm going to set the entry point as being bash. So these are a few extra little Dockerfile commands that this one's going to basically drop privs so that I don't run the shell as root. And this is going to actually drop me into bash. And I now no longer need to specify this bash here in the instantiate script because it'll natively, naturally do the bash for me. Don't need that. So now let's rebuild and run and see what happens. Build. And this sending build context is going to get on our nerves. Oh wow, no syntax errors. Go me. Thought that'd bail out for sure. Alright, so we've built. Now we instantiate. There we go. Now we've got Justin at, and this is the host name of a Docker container. It's actually the Docker container's ID. We're a limited user. UID 31337, GID 31337. Perfect. So we've got a much more desktop feeling container now. We're not running as root in the container anymore. If we needed to, we could install sudo in the container, which we may need to do later as part of rbenv. Dang it. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But for now, we've dropped privs to Justin. So what else does this guide assume? So we now do have a user that is not root. You have a GitHub account. I do have a GitHub account. We won't be doing any GitHub stuff tonight. Now we need to install the base development packages. Sudo apt-get -y install autoconf blah 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 blah. Whole bunch of packages. There's no Ruby yet. We'll get to that soon, and so will we. Let's just copy this here. These are all the build time and runtime, I'm guessing, dependencies, or some of the runtime dependencies of Metasploit. So we go and do... we'll do it before the group add stuff. Set paste it in. So we're going to run. This is just how I like to indent and set up my Docker files. We don't need sudo because we are root. We're going to do apt-get update and apt-get -y install. All these trailing backslashes just mean that it'll go all up onto one line at runtime. Now, a couple of things. And is your friend when you're building Docker files. If you haven't seen and before, this is how it works. You can run a program like true. True is a simple program that exits successfully. So if you do true and echo doot, you'll get doot. If you do false, i.e. a program that exits unsuccessfully. In fact, if you read, I love this. Man true, do nothing successfully. Man false, do nothing unsuccessfully. So if you run true and then echo $? You'll see the exit status of the previous process was 0. If you run false and echo $? You'll see that the exit status of the previous process was 1. You may have also noticed this little red %. If you run programs successfully, I get a green %. If you run programs unsuccessfully, it turns red just to let me know that something just returned a false or a failing error code. So now if you do true and echo doot, you get a doot. If you do false and echo doot, you get nothing. And is actually binary and, but it early outs. And OJ kind of clued me into why and works the way that it does. So if you've got like 1 and 1, 1 and 1 is 1, 1 and 0, 1 and 0 is 0, 0 and 1 is 0, 0 and 0 is 0. It's kind of like computer science 101, that, you know, and or XOR tables that we all learned how they work. Your shell is basically evaluating the exact same logic. It's trying to compute a return code of the return codes of these two programs ANDed together. but it early outs. When I say early out, I mean that if it runs the left-hand side of the and it got a truthy value, then it's like, oh, we're on a roll here. Maybe this and operation will result in a truthy value. I'd better run the right-hand side and see if it is also truthy so that I can then return truthy. But if the left-hand side is a non-truthy value, the shell's like, well, I'm lazy. There's no point in running the right-hand side of the and statement because there is no way that a false statement and anything else can ever be anything but false. So fuck it, I'll just return false. So when you want to do one thing and then do another, if and only if the first thing succeeded, use and. Alternatively, if you want to do something and then only do something else if the first thing failed, use pipe for or. Is it or? Pipe or false or. Is pipe? I've just broken my brain now as to how early outs for an or would work. Anyway, I don't know if it's an or, but it works. Shit works. It will do the right hand side only if the left hand side fails. So pipe is good for when you want to do something, and then if it fails, do something else. Otherwise, don't do the right hand side. Pipe is what you crave. And that is why we do a whole bunch of ands in our Docker file. The other thing is, as soon as any statement in a Docker file returns a falsy value, or a non-true value, or a non-successful value, the whole Docker file will be like, I'm going to error out because I don't want to build an image where there were failures halfway through. Because that sounds like it's asking for trouble. So everything in your Docker file must exit successfully, or else the build will fail. Also, everything in your Docker file, as it's building, must never ask for user input, which is why we get this -y here. Normally, apt-get install will go, I'm going to download 40 megabytes of stuff, are you sure you want to do it? And it will actually give you, I'm going to install this, I'm going to upgrade this, I'm going to remove that. It'll kind of show you what's going on so you can accept dependency issues and actually get on top of things before it goes and blows the brains out of the box. But that's bad news when you're building a Docker image, because anything that asks for user input will cause the build to instantly fail. -y means fuck it, just do it anyway. So always use -y when you're apt-get installing stuff in a Docker file, because you need to, for the reasons just mentioned. So now this Docker file is going to install all the dependencies for Metasploit. Then it's going to do a group add and a user add. And it's going to drop privs to Justin and do an entry point bash. Bear with me one sec while I go to the privacy screen and dig up something from another Docker file, which will just make things a bit quicker tonight. And I'll show you what I'm doing in 1 second. This line here can be mostly ignored for tonight's purposes, but on my host, I run apt-cacher-ng. And before you get evil ideas about meeting me on a CTF network and fiddling with my apt-cacher-ng and trying to figure out what packages I've got installed by looking at my cache, IP tables restricts it so that it's only accessible from the Docker network. What it does, apt-cacher-ng is a HTTP proxy that is apt-aware. When apt-get tries to download packages through a machine running apt-cacher-ng, apt-cacher-ng will transparently cache the versions that are being downloaded. If you've ever been curious why Debian updates over HTTP and has PGP signatures on packages, on package manifests and release files, you may go, why not use HTTPS so that you get double the encryption and double the protection? It's because of caching. If you do it over HTTP, then the university network or your employer's network, or you yourself, because you've got no girlfriend and nothing better to do with your life than set up your lab just the way you like it, you can cache your own downloads so that you don't end up having to download the same thing 5 times. It makes stuff like this scream, as long as there's been no version bumps since you last downloaded a package. So we're going to set up the apt proxy by twiddling this file here. We're going to install a bunch of software, and then we're going to add the Justin user, drop privs, run bash. So we do the build again, and this apt-get install should be really quite quick. Like, hopefully quicker than you've seen apt-get run before. Doing the update takes a while because it's got to download the packages to get the latest version info, but then once it downloads the meat, it'll be quick. It's thinking. Come on, don't make me look stupid. So it's going to download 100 megs worth of packages. It's making me look a little bit stupid. I've seen it go much quicker. There must have been version bumps since I last downloaded stuff. Or I'm stupid. One of the two. Yeah, it's like 3 megabytes a second. Not terribly quick, but at the same time, quicker than my internet, I believe. So at least I'm not completely lying. Now it's just installing what it just downloaded. So while that goes, the next thing that the dev guide wants us to do is fork and clone Metasploit framework. We might discuss forking later. Forking is Git nomenclature, nomen, whatever that word is. Don't tease me. I read a good tweet this week. If someone mispronounces a word, don't tease them. It's because they read the word. They weren't told the word, and they're a reader. So if you tease people for reading a word then pronouncing it wrong, you're discouraging them from reading. Also, don't tease me because I get hurt feelings. Forking's to do with Git and GitHub. We might talk about forking later. And then this clone here, we did this earlier, and you saw it took maybe like 5 minutes-ish, maybe, to download about 300 megs. What you could do is you could straight into your Docker file put run git clone blah and do the clone on each build. But if you download and if you clone it beforehand and have it sitting in the build context, and then maybe just tweak that build.py file to actually go and do a git pull and get the latest commits. It's kind of like a cache. You don't need to go and download the whole thing from GitHub each time you do an image build. You can just go and use the copy on your file system. And this microphone has drooped again. 1 second. There we go. So that's how I like to do things. I like to actually have a clone sitting on my file system. There we go, we built our container. So now if we go and run it with instantiate, we should have all that software. It's kind of hard to prove it, but example, Postgres, PSQL, is it? Yeah, so we've got like the Postgres client. We're probably not going to get into the whole database thing tonight. The reason why Postgres came down is A, there's some build time stuff that Metasploit needs to be there for, and B, it's there to do the Metasploit database, which I don't really use anyway. So cool, that worked. What do we do now? We fork and clone. So we've got to get our copy, our clone of Metasploit into the Docker image. So we've got this directory here called Metasploit-framework. I keep forgetting, is add or copy the one that we want to use? I think it's... which one is it? Best practices. Add or copy. Copy is preferred. It's more transparent than add. Only supports basic copying of local files, whereas add lets you do stuff like tar extraction and get from a URL. So we're going to use copy. We're going to go to our Docker file, and before we drop privs, we'll copy Metasploit framework to /home Justin. I like to put my stuff in ~. ~opt/. Before we do that, we're going to need to run make directory ~justin/opt and chown justin ~justin/opt. I also like to make my home directory privates because it's just good practice when you land yourself on a server to go and make your home directory not snoopable on, so that your co-workers don't go stealing your shell scripts. chmod 700 ~justin and make directory ~justin/opt, chown it to Justin, because we're running as root here. So when we go and create this directory for this copy to have somewhere to go to, we need to chown that directory to the user. Then we copy Metasploit framework to that directory and we drop privs and run bash. So now if we instantiate again, change directory to our home directory. In fact, we should do, before the entry point, workdir/home/Justin. What this means is that when we run the container, we'll end up in Justin's home directory straight away. So we'll go and build that. Actually, we needed to build it once we did the copy Metasploit anyway. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been there. So this is the Docker cache, hard at work. We don't need to go and redo that apt-get install because Docker can reuse that layer in the cache, and there's no need to do duplication of work. Even stuff like setting the workdir, dropping privs to Justin, it all creates new layers. As you can see with this here, these here are the IDs of each layer as it does stuff, and then the ID of the last layer happens to be the ID of the image you just built. So now we can run it, and we happen to already be in Justin's home directory. There we go, ls, we've got opt, ls opt/Metasploit, opt. Aha, Metasploit framework is owned by root because it got dropped in there as part of the build. We need to chown that. Run chown Justin ~Justin/opt/Metasploit framework. You can use the shorthand ~Justin instead of /home/Justin when you're doing run stuff, because run stuff actually happens within a shell, so this will get shell expanded. I believe you can't do ~Justin for stuff like this as part of copy because it's actually a file system, a raw file system thing, so you can't use the shorthand. So if we redo the build, we're going to get sick of doing builds, but I'd like to do it bit by bit so we can prove the progress we're making and actually catch mistakes as we go. Here's a mistake: cannot access home Justin opt Metasploit -framework. No such file or directory. Really? Home Justin opt, did I typo something? Cannot access home Justin opt Metasploit framework. Really? We just did the copy and now we can't chown it? Let's run it. There's the typo. Metasploit framework. Right on. We can fix this. We have the technology. Metasploit. Cool. Am I missing anything important in chat? If anyone needs me, please use my name so that I know that there's stuff to answer. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep on cracking. There's a lot of stuff in here. Let me just quickly scroll through it. Oh, Kane, I think I know what the problem is now. I think it's because when you go and change what you want to install, you want it to invalidate the cache that also involves the update. So that brand new package manifests and release files get pulled down. And it means that, that's what it is. If you do an update and an install, there's two separate commands, and then 3 weeks later you change the install line, it will invalidate the cache that includes the install line and will redo the install. But Debian may have had package churns since then, and some of the files may 404, and you need to do the update so that you know to go and get packages that still exist on the mirrors. Not so important for stable, I don't think. Extremely important for testing, because day to day stuff churns and you need to do an update before an install, otherwise you're probably going to do 404s when you do an install. I think that's why it's recommended to and the update and the install together, I think. Or maybe I'm completely wrong and there is something dirty about the update state, and to get a cache hit you need to do them as a part of one. Maybe that's what it is and I'm just talking at my butthole. Yeah, I think it's because you want to invalidate the update once you change the install line. Metasploit. Thank you, Cashew. Appreciate it. If I was keeping an eye on chat, I wouldn't have sat there scratching my head for so long. It's okay to tease Australians for any reason. It's totally... I've found that when I travel, that Australians are incredibly sarcastic, self-deprecating, and we expect to take it. We also expect to give it. I haven't met an Australian who is cruel so much as they are sarcastic. And they will rib you and tease you and expect it back. But some cultures don't appreciate that. And you try and have a go at someone thinking that it's all in good fun, and they take it a bit more personally than you meant for it to be taken. So Australians can be teased about anything and we will just laugh. Thank you, Parody. I think everyone caught that except for me. Mars Bars, you're so confused watching this. That's good. If you're watching stuff and you know what's going on, you're watching the wrong stuff. Is what I try to tell myself when I'm confused. Hopefully this teaches you. Hopefully you get a few things out of this. And please ask questions as we go. I know that Kane, hanging out in the chat, is Listena. Sorry, Listena. I keep on forgetting how to pronounce your name. Listena, yeah. If Listena's here, he's also pretty clear with Docker. There's a lot of people here who know Docker. If they can't help, then I will give it my best go, but I would trust what Kane has to say before I would trust what I have to say. So if you're curious, if you've got questions, let the chat know. They'll help you out. What e-juice? I make it myself. It's banana, dragon fruit, and strawberry. Yep, indeed. Oh yeah, this is totally zero nic. Nicotine's illegal in many states of Australia, so of course there's no nicotine in what I'm vaping tonight. It's DIY, made from raw flavor ingredients, and I don't put nicotine in it because yeah. Let's go back and let's get some stuff done. Have we done we fixed the typo? We need to do the build. Let's exit. Oop, nope, I don't need to exit. I'm already exited. The typo that saves you from killing something you didn't mean to kill. That should be cached. Why is this taking so long? Maybe it's check something to make sure that nothing's changed. No, it actually did the copy. Oh, because we fixed a typo. Okay, yep. Okay, I'm good. I'm back on board now. That's why it had a cache invalidation. Building, 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 building. Instantiate. cd opt / Metasploit. And there we go, we've got Metasploit framework. If we try and run MSF console, nothing's going to happen. We don't have Ruby installed. So now we need to, is the next thing the guide says to do is install Ruby. Ignore this. This is to do with if you've forked, you need to do some stuff. There we go, now we're doing Ruby. I choose not to use RVM. I've recently started using rbenv. Oh yeah, so the guide actually gives a hat tip. You can get instructions for RVM, but you'll be on your own to make sure you have a sane Ruby. Most of the committers use RVM, so for this guide we're going to stick with it. So let's... Here we go. I think this is the official rbenv repo. It looks very familiar. It's got a lot of stars, got a lot of forks, got a lot of people watching it. It's probably the real rbenv. So, what is RVM and how is rbenv the same thing but not? So Ruby is a little bit hard to manage. Ruby, if you're not familiar with it, it's like Python but not. It's a scripting language that is used as a programming language. In Python, you've got modules or libraries. I think are they libraries or modules? Python, Homo fail. Python module. Yeah, modules. But they're basically libraries. I just think the proper word is modules. I think the proper word is modules. Ruby has gems. So you've got Python modules, libraries, and you've got Ruby gems. The thing is, Ruby, your project, like Metasploit is a Ruby project, and we get this file. We get a couple of files. Find.max depth equals 1 dash name is .star. There we go. We've got a couple of hidden files hanging out in the framework directory. We've got .ruby-version, cat.ruby version. Metasploit framework, as of where it's currently at, requires Ruby 2.3.3. So Ruby versions, I haven't looked into how much so or why, but every project you use will specify which version of Ruby it's written for. I'm guessing there's compatibility breaking changes with each new release of Ruby. And that is why every project will actually have a file.ruby version. There's a few different flavors of how you can specify which version of Ruby your project should use. .ruby version is a pretty standard one. But there'll be a file with the contents being the version number of Ruby that's required. You've also got... You should have .gem file. No, it's not .gem file, it's just gem file. VM gem file. VI gem file. This image doesn't have anything installed. So that we don't invalidate our cache. Actually, oh! Crap, I forgot something. We're off in the weeds. I'm going to come back to packages, to Debian packages in a second. Let's go let's go less gem file. The fact that you don't even have VI in an image shows how lightweight Docker images generally are. Ruby's also used in some 3D software. Okay, cool. Wow, writing 3D software in Ruby. I don't write 3D. I don't write software in any language, but I would have thought that 3D software you wouldn't use a scripting language for. But there you go. Today I learned. Cruel and sarcastic aren't mutually exclusive. What have I missed? Banana, dragon fruit, and strawberry exploded from excessive hipster. Thank you, Singularity. Kiwi fruit, white grape, and sweet strawberries at 3. Kiwi fruit, white grape. That would be nice. That would be really nice. We don't have Vim or Vi. We should fix that in a second. So we've got this .ruby version which specifies the version of Ruby to use. We've got this file called gem file which specifies all the different gems that are required to run the software, and they're split up into different groups, and you've got this huge, I think, is this YAML? I think it's YAML, or it's YAML-ish. No, it's not YAML, I think it's just a domain-specific language for gem files. So, yeah, you've got gems and Ruby versions. So, you could install Ruby from your distro's package manager. The thing is, if you go and get rubies, if you go and get Debian's Ruby, Debian package Ruby, what version are you going to get? On stable, you're going to get 2.1.5. On stretch, you'll get 2.3.3, which I think is what, Metasploit requires. So if you're on Debian testing, you're in luck, because the system Ruby that is provided by app will work until such time as Debian updates that, or Metasploit bumps to a different version, and then you're shit out of luck, you can't use your OS's Ruby. So when you're running Ruby applications or developing Ruby applications, you almost never use your distribution's Ruby. You need to go and seek out a Ruby that matches the version of the thing that you want to use. RVM and rbenv, or actually a plugin for rbenv called rubybuild, can go and grab a version of Ruby, and if needed can compile it for you. It will actually go and keep it in your home directory, so you don't need to be root to install different Ruby versions, which is really nice. Because otherwise you'd just be like hunting down different Ruby versions, and it would suck. But that's basically all they do. I think RVM also has gem sets or something. I'm not sure exactly what they do to help you, because I just normally use bundler. I think RVM actually overrides the way bundler works. Bundler is used to go and parse this gem file and actually go and get all the gems that are needed to run the thing. I didn't intend to get into the depths of how Ruby works and how to actually harangue your rubies, but something like RVM or rbenv will go and do a lot of that heavy lifting for you. I recommend rbenv. I find that it works quite well. You can go and read this to find out exactly how it works. We should just go and install it. Let's go. Important note: if you're looking to switch from RVM to rbenv, you need to uninstall RVM first, because they collide and clash. Nico, good to have you around. You've missed quite a bit, mostly bullshitting, some actual work, but it'll be on YouTube tomorrow. It'll be on Twitch VODs as of, I think right now. I think if you really wanted to, you can go and watch from the beginning on Twitch. But hang around and see if you can follow the tail end, and it's good to have you here. Which distro do I use? Debian. All the details for the software, the hardware that I use is in the description below. Indeed, Singularity. Indeed. SketchUp 3D software uses it. Oh, okay, right. So 3D software isn't written in Ruby. It provides maybe a scripting interface that you can write Ruby to actually automate what you're doing. That makes sense. Failed sleep. Time to get ready for work. Good to have you around, failed sleep. Catch you next time, hey? Singularity made the law. Singularity gets the Mars bar. Singularity gets the Mars bar. So, this is how to install it. We just go and git clone it from this URL into /rbenv. I'm going to guess rbenv is small enough to just go and put it straight in the Docker file. We probably don't need to do the caching trick. Try to compile, blah, 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 blah. Okay, optional, fuck that noise. Add that to your path, easy access, blah, blah, blah. Cool. Run the init for blah, blah, blah. Restart your shell. Optional, install Ruby build. Alright, so we want to do this. Let's just run this. We're actually inside the container. So let's go and just run git clone rbenv to /.rbenv and see what we get. That's nice and quick. We'll just go and whack that in the Docker file. Step 2, add this to your path for access to the rbenv command line utility. I don't think we need to do that. Let's skip to 3 and come back to that. Run this for shell specific instructions on how to initialize rbenv to enable shims and auto completion. Load rbenv automatically by appending the following to .bash rc. Let's go and run this and see what happens. Huh. Let's run this. Path equals shims $path blah 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 function. Okay, I think we actually do need to do step 2. Add this to your path, access to the rbenv command line utility. So we just run echo export path equals blah 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 caret or greater than bash prof. That looks fine to me. Let's run that. Cool. So now we're doing these actually inside the container just for testing's sake. When we exit this container, any change you make to a container disappears. They're not persistent. There are ways if you do exit a container accidentally and you're like, oh no, I had my Bitcoin wallet in the home directory and I don't have a backup and there's $10,000 in there. There are ways to get your files back out, but for the most part you don't want to keep anything important inside a Docker container because by design it gets blowed up when the container disappears. Run this for shell specific instructions on how to initialize rbenv. Let's run that. Load rbenv automatically by appending the following to .bash_profile. So we went and put this in .bash_profile. Now we're going to echo that. That looks good. Into /bash_profile. And then restart your shell so that the path changes take effect. Opening a new terminal tab will do it. We can't open new terminal tabs inside a container. Now check if rbenv was set up. Let's just go and rerun bash as a child of bash. Now check if rbenv was set up. Do this. Didn't work. What have we done? Trade a Mars bar for a new vape. I'll let you guys sort out your trade. I feel like you miss Justin giving me crap all the time. Singularity all the time. For days. So that rerunning bash didn't actually do what I wanted it to do. Let's exit. Let's just go and source.bash_profile. That should be enough for testing. Now we go and redo that type thing. Hey, there we go. rbenv is a function. That's what we want. Optionally, install Ruby build, which provides the rbenv install command that simplifies the process of installing new Ruby versions. Let's do that in a second. This seemed to work for us, this stuff here. So let's go and put that into our Docker file. Let's go and pinch this and put it in here. So once we've dropped privs to Justin, we want to do it here. Run. And so we did the git clone. Then what did we do? What worked for us? Here was the clone. Then we did the echo blah blah blah. And then what did we do? Another echo, this one here. Oops. And that's what got us up and running. So we'll go and put a comment, install rbenv. This here is drop msf into Justin's /opt. Create the Justin user. Metasploit dependencies. Before we drop privs to Justin, install some nice to have tools. Let's go and pinch these 2 lines to do our update and install. I want tmux. I want vim. What else do I want in this container? that should do for the time being. The thing with this is once you've kind of got Metasploit installed in a Git container, you can then go and hang the other tools you need, like tmux and vim, off of the Docker file, and you can start to slowly build your own Kali replacement, with the core of it being Metasploit, and just have this awful sprawling monster that is born from there. So we've got some tools, drop privs, install rbenv. Let's build this and see what happens. It's not what I wanted. Let's do the build. While that build's happening, let's see what's happening in chat. Git indeed Pudota Bomben. Marsbar, it's the Sigeli RX75. No, not Sigeli. Relo RX75. Yeah, this bad boy. I quite like it. Comes with a tank that you proceed to just throw straight in the bin and use your nice tank on it. Why would you? So security of Docker images. Yeah, don't give someone shell inside Docker if you don't have to, because if they've got a kernel bug, then they can break out, or if they've got a Docker escape, they can break out. We could probably chat about this over a beer, but this kind of spoke to me when I read it a couple of years ago. This is what Theo had to say about virtualization. Everyone kind of thinks in any which way that I segment resources of a bare metal machine and carve them off into different little buckets makes them secure, and they can't talk between each other unless they talk over the network, in which case you can have authentication of the network daemons and whatnot to protect you. Theo has quite a sobering rant on, it was on the OpenBSD mailing list, about virtualization. It's like, really? We can't build operating systems without bugs. We can't build browsers without bugs. We can't build software without bugs. What makes you think we can build some software whose job it is to virtualize and emulate x86 and virtual hardware, virtual network cards, virtual floppy drives, virtual CD drives, virtual hard drives, etc., and have it free of bugs? Like, if we failed at operating systems, why would we all of a sudden succeed at doing virtualization bug-free? So there are ways to escape out of VMs. It does make an attack against you more expensive and more difficult. It is a barrier to someone causing you harm and actually escaping the VM. They've got to put the extra effort in and have an extra bug, but it doesn't make it impossible. Same thing for Docker, although Docker probably provides a much looser boundary between stuff. But if you're using any segmentation technology of a bare metal machine to try and isolate the nasty stuff off from the stuff you care about, you've probably done it wrong already. So the way I see containerization and virtualization is a convenience thing and a very mild security boundary that will stop casual traversal, but it won't stop dedicated traversal. Yeah. See, then Kane comes out with words like idempotency. Again, no one's ever spoken that word to me. I don't have any friends who use big words, so I've only ever read it. If you do it right, the container is always the same. So you and your mate who are sort of mostly running the same thing, but not quite. Ah, yeah, cool. So Kane's right. It answers. I mean, this doesn't answer why I do Dockerization of things like Metasploit, but it fixes the problem where the developer says, "Oh, the software works on my laptop," and then Ops goes, "Well, good. We're going to rack your laptop." Developer's like, "Oh, no, that's not what I meant. I meant you're doing something wrong because it works on my laptop." It provides an answer to that story. The developer can go and produce a fully self-contained image that the software works within, and then Ops should just be able to spin that image up in prod in the data center, and it should just work. So what it does is it goes and captures and bundles all the dependencies together, and it bundles non-conflicting software together, and lets you basically package your stuff up into nice little bundles. The property of certain operations in mathematics and computer science. Cool. I'm going to let Kane explain how Docker relates to abstract algebra and functional programming, because that's totally Kane's thing. But I agree, Kane. It solves the "but it works on my laptop" story. It always ends up exactly. But for me, it provides a way to logically separate my tasks out into different contexts and only expose parts of the file system that are necessary for each one to that thing. So for example, on stream, yes, it stops my sensitive files from being shown on stream, which is really nice. But also, if one of my containers got popped, you've got to actually work to get to my files by escaping the container. It means that, you don't get all the files for free. And the more you look at the state of software and open source, I got a bunch of open source software bugs up my sleeve that are hopefully going to be able to be talked about shortly. It makes you go, wow. I audited, I didn't audit, audit's a strong word, but I had a nice long look with a cold beer at some open source software that I rely on, and was like, wow, there's some dumb bugs that have been shaken out. Some of the bugs aren't so dumb, some of the bugs are a little bit dumb. So yeah, it made me go, I should probably start trying to containerize my applications, because some of them have bugs. All of them have bugs, but I found some of them and it was a bit sobering. Yes, bang on, Nico. It's like virtualenv. So that's my rant about, yes, the security story about containerization is not complete, but neither is the one about virtualization. But it does put loose walls up, and it helps you to basically... The other thing it helps me do is, for example, I run Debian testing on the desktop, which, as I said before, I'm considering swapping out for stable next time I reinstall. Chromium on Debian testing is a lot more out of date than I realized. And I didn't realize it till I was brushing up against a particular bug. And I started researching, going, why am I getting this error message when I go to certain HTTPS sites? And I found a bug that had been filed and resolved a couple of months ago. And I went, ooh. Because no one pays attention to what version of Chromium they're running, because it auto-updates, right? And Chrome auto-updates, so these numbers start to become meaningless, and you don't check them as much as you used to check them. But it turns out Debian testing and its Chromium is super out of date, and made me go, ugh. What I'll do is I'll Dockerize my Chromium and run it off of Debian stable, so that I actually get security updates. And as a bonus, my browser is now contained, so there's a loose security boundary. Right, I'm going to take another quick 5-minute break. If you need to grab a drink, now's the time. I'm going to fill my water bottle up because I'm dying of sweat with the door closed so that you can't hear my roommates. So the things I do for you, right? I like sweat myself to death with the door shut just for audio clarity. But if you need to take a break, now's the time. We'll reconvene in 5 minutes or so, and I'll catch you then. Alrighty, let's actually get some things done instead of just talking about them. Maybe if I focus on getting things done, I'll be impressive enough to earn a Mars bar. My fate is in your hand. You know what, even if you don't give me the Mars bar, I'm eating it after the stream's done anyway. I'll just be very teary while I do so. So we've got this here. I think the latest thing we did was add a bunch of comments and install some nice to have tools and install rbenv. I probably should have kicked off a build while we went for break, but oh well. Let's kick off a build now. That happened really quickly. Maybe I did kick off a build before we went on break. Instantiate. Vim. Yeah, we've got Vim now. Do we have rbenv? Go path. Looks like the bash underscore profile. I always get confused about bash profile and bash rc. One of them gets run for interactive and non-interactive shells. The other one only gets run for interactive. Only gets run for non-interactive shells. And doing this -ti instantiation may be causing bash profile to not be honored and only bash rc to be honored. So let's go and instead of appending these lines to bash profile, let's do it to bash rc. When you've got two options and one of them doesn't work, don't go and investigate why, just go and switch to the other one and get happy. So instead of bash profile, let's go and jam these lines into bash rc. Let's do that build and try again. Bonus points if there's tears. Right, I get it. We just want me to be punished. Profiles for login sessions, RC is everything. Or run bash-itemmaker to the login session. There we go, Kane with the answers. Thank you, Kane. We've taken the easy way out and just used bash rc. Let's go and instantiate. Do we have rbenv? Hey, we do. So now we've got rbenv installed, and the installation was really just to go and clone it into /.rbenv, append a couple of things to bash rc, and we're done. We've now got rbenv. So now what do we do with rbenv? I think we need to go and install a plugin so we can actually go and build the Ruby that Metasploit craves. Optional install Ruby build. Let's go and just new tab this Ruby build. Upgrading, blah 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 blah. Installing Ruby versions. rbenv install doesn't ship with rbenv. It's provided by the Ruby build project. If you installed it, which we'll do now, you should be able to rbenv install -l, rbenv install a particular Ruby version. Alternatively to the install command, you can download and compile Ruby manually. Blech. Any entry in that directory can be a symlink to a Ruby version installed elsewhere. Blah blah blah. Installing gems. To install gems, you go and do gem install. Generally, you'll install the gem bundler, and then use bundler to install the gems that the project requires. You don't need sudo to install gems. Typically, blah blah. The Ruby versions will be installed and writable by your user. No extra privileges. So this is the other beautiful thing about RVM and rbenv. If you were to go and install software the traditional way using apt-get or using make install, then you require root privileges to drop stuff in the system area of the file system, unless you do the configure prefix equals / blah blah and do the compilation targeting your home directory, which we're not going to get into tonight. With RVM and rbenv, all your Ruby stuff gets, I just had, garbage spat onto all my terminals by Docker. I still don't know why Docker goes and dumps this on me every now and then, but it triggers some sort of networking change. There we go. And that happens. So yeah, the good thing about rbenv and rvm is that all the things end up in your home directory. You don't need to be root to install new rubies. You don't need to be root to install new gems. You don't need to be messing up your file system, because if you go and drop stuff in user local or /bin or whatever you're installing wants to drop stuff, you run the risk of polluting your nice pristine distribution supported system. You should leave /user local whatever, /bin, /sbin, /user sbin, whatever. Leave that to the distro, leave that to Debian or Red Hat or Gentoo or Arch or whoever manages your system to manage. Like, that's their problem. If you go and start dropping stuff there, then you want to uninstall software, it can be a bit of a pain to go and dig out all the places that it got its tentacles into. With something like rbenv, all the rubies end up in your home directory, and if you end up painting yourself into a corner where you did a bad install of some Ruby nonsense, then you haven't polluted your file system. You don't need to track down everything that you ended up dropping in /. In the case of where am I? In the case of rbenv, if everything goes totally sideways, that's really all you should need to do, and it should clean up almost everything to do with your Ruby. There may be like .gems or .bundler or something, but it's contained in your home directory. You're not going and polluting your root file system, which is a plus. Blah 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 blah. Cool. Let's go and do this Ruby build nonsense. Installing as an rbenv plugin is you'd simply git clone ruby build to /rbenv/plugins/ruby build. That's all you do. And then you get the rbenv install stuff for free. So this is all you need to do. Easy. Let's go and do that. I scrolled there, that's why the screen flickered. So we do that inside the container, and Ruby build is installed. Now we can do rbenv install -l as we were told to do by the rbenv doco, and it shows you all the different rubies you're allowed to install. You can go grep ruby grep 2.3.3, maybe just grep 2.3.3. There you go. 2.3.3, which Metasploit requires, is a Ruby version that is installable by rbenv and Ruby build. I'm guessing you need to update Ruby build every now and then, because it's probably got a dictionary of all the different rubies that can be installed. Yeah, here they are. So this project actually has a bunch of recipes for each version of Ruby. So if we go to 2.3.3, we can actually look at what it's going to do when it installs this Ruby. It's going to install OpenSSL from here, and here is the hash of that file. Blah blah blah. This is how it's going to install Ruby 2.3.3. It's going to download it from rubylang.org and then probably build it. So you need to update your Ruby build if you want to install a brand fresh new version of Ruby. But we've got a fresh install right now, so we don't need to update anything. What we need to do is, we'll go back here, we need to do rbenv install the Ruby version. Now we can do that like this, rbenv install 2.3.3. And that would install the version. Let's just go and comment that out. If we go in cat opt metasploit framework.ruby version, we can see that Metasploit craves this version. But what if Metasploit changes the Ruby version at once, which Metasploit does from time to time? You're going to have to update your Docker file to actually specify exactly which version Metasploit now requires. Alternatively, what if we did rbenv install subshell cat this file? That should tell rbenv to install the exact version that's required by Metasploit at any point in time. Even if Metasploit changes the .ruby version in the project, then your Docker file will respect that change. Hit enter, and it's going to download stuff and install it. So this looks like it's doing useful things. So it looks like we've successfully installed rbenv, the Ruby build plugin, and looks like the install is happening. So I'm going to kill that, and we're going to put it in the Docker file. because this is just for testing purposes. So let's go back to that clone. This is what we did, git clone ruby build. Let's go and drop that in our Docker file. So let's go change this to install rbenv ruby dash build and Metasploit's Ruby version. So we'll append to this and the git clone, and we want to do this rbenv install line. Now, before we can do this rbenv install, we need to actually activate the rbenv that this command here just installed, right? Because this command here, it's going to be run in its entirety. It's going to clone rbenv. It's going to update bash rc so that rbenv becomes installed. It's going to clone ruby build so that ruby build becomes installed. Then it's going to use rbenv. But it can't use rbenv because if you make changes to bash rc, you need to launch a new shell to be able to use those changes. So what we could do is we could do two separate commands, right? So that as Justin, it does the install of all the different rbenv mechanics, and then it does a separate rbenv install. But it's a Docker best practice to minimize the number of layers you've got going on because reasons. So what we could do is we could just go and source //bashrc, and it would go then and pull in the path changes. This is a super nasty way of doing it. We could also just go and do this export and this eval. That's probably the cleaner way. So instead of sourcing bashrc, we'll go and actually do this export, and we'll do this eval. And we'll then go and use the rbenv that we've just lit up by doing this export and this eval. We'll use rbenv install to install the Ruby version that Metasploit craves. Looks pretty good to me. Let's see how we go. Exit and do the build. If people are interested, this Ruby, this Docker file is actually starting to shape up to very closely resemble the way in which I normally abuse Docker. So while it's, I'm sure, not kosher according to the way that Docker is meant to be used, if people are interested, I will happily share this file. What I might do is I might go and I'll scrub this apt cache stuff out. I'll probably... No, I'll leave that. I'll leave all the Justin stuff. You can just deal with that. You'll probably want to swap this out for your real UID and your real GID. You might want to change this to be your own name. Change that. But the other thing is you'll need to already have cloned Metasploit, which I'll just put in as a comment. Make sure Metasploit framework is already cloned and in the build context. Yeah, I might go and push this out. I do have a Twitch repo on GitHub because I don't really want this to be something I officially support. I don't want people to actually use it. But if you find this interesting for the way in which you may want to use Docker, I will publish this as part of the Twitch TV repo. So I'll have a new directory in here, Dockerizing Metasploit. I'll go and publish these scripts if people are interested. So keep an eye on this repo because it'll all be there probably sometime tomorrow once I clean it up and upload it. So it looks like we're installing Ruby. We've just done the rbenv install and now we're doing the Ruby needful. Hopefully that makes sense as to why we use rbenv to install Ruby for us, so that it exactly satisfies what Metasploit craves, because different Ruby projects have different depend on particular versions of Ruby. And we'll tackle the whole gem thing shortly. So while this installs, actually let's catch up on chat. Bokan, has someone filled you in? Looks like we're being filled in. Jardeth, good to have you around. Take care, dude. I'll see you soon. Won't that break the Docker layer caching? Infinite, are you talking about me going and editing the rbenv install line? Yes, it invalidated the cache. If that's not what you're referring to, let me know. Yeah, so Bokan, hopefully you can get something out of this. Stick around, because when stuff's way over your head, you're in the right place. So if you've got any questions, queries, concerns, let me know. I'll do my best to answer them. Yeah, MSF is indeed Metasploit framework. It's an exploit dev perfect. Yeah, it is Bokan. I just abuse it to run my own environment the way I like to run it. So it is used for development, deployment, microservices, and being totally agile, Web 3.0. But I like to run my software in Docker because it lets me keep it nicely bundled up and nicely contained and exactly the way I like it. It lets me spin up fresh workspaces for different projects. If I want to spend today using Metasploit to do something, I can just go and run my container that includes Metasploit. Brand new pristine file system with just the software I want installed. No garbage. None of that. Yesterday I was monkey patching something in Metasploit and I've now broken things. It's a totally clean place to do some work in. Yeah. Well, I mean, Kane, Bash RC, yeah, probably should. Actually, yeah, because all the Docker lines are sh-seed, which won't pull in. See, I was worried about double sourcing Bash RC, but it shouldn't have been sourced at all because you're sh-seeing stuff. You're right, Kane, I probably should have just sourced Bash RC. Yes, perfect, Nico. Yep, exactly, Nico. But the good thing is, if you really wanted to have Metasploit framework, by the way, this rbenv stuff, if you're looking to replace your RVM because it's too heavyweight or what have you, the stuff I'm doing with RVM will work on your local host as well. Sorry, rbenv will work on your local host as well. You don't need to Dockerize stuff. RVM and rbenv provide, similar to Docker, it's this nice layer of abstraction. You can have particular versions of Ruby sitting around. You can have multiple versions and then different projects based on. The cool thing about something like rbenv is if you go and run Metasploit framework, it will, if you go and do /opt/Metasploit framework /msf console, it will start walking back through directories until it gets to the root of the file system, looking for a .ruby version. And as soon as it sees one, it goes, oh, okay, cool. I think I should be using this version here. I'm going to use this version of Ruby to run this command. And then if you go and do, I think WP scan might be written in Ruby. Is WP scan Ruby or Python? Yep, so WP scan needs Ruby 240. And if you go and do /opt/WP scan/WP scan.rb, it will rbenv will invisibly and automatically respect this file here and use the version that is needed. So the good thing about something like rbenv is you can use it on your local file, on your local host as well. It doesn't need to be Dockerized. It provides really nice isolation and not containment, but isolation of different Rubies, so that the project that requires version X can use version X, and the project that needs version Y can use version Y. Both Rubies can sit on in your home directory side by side and be used when needed. So rbenv is a really nice tool, irregardless respectively of Docker. No, Infinite. When you change a Docker file, so for example, if I was to go in and change this This here, even though it's multiple lines, they've all got this trailing backslash, so this is really one line or one directive. If I went and changed that file, changed that line, if I went and changed this mode here and made it 770 instead, or 777 because YOLO, then this line in the cache would become invalidated and would get rerun, and all this would be rerun automatically. So as soon as you change a line, that line gets cache invalidated and you get a cache miss as of that line onwards. So you don't need to do a no cache. You do a no cache when you should do a no cache every now and then. And in fact, that's something I often have as part of build.py. I will pull in something like argparse, Python 3 argparse. Argparse is a really nice way of actually having help scripts and verbose, and you can have optional arguments and positional arguments and flags, and you can add these kind of things to your Python programs and Python scripts, like this here. Let's see if we can find a good example. Yeah, usage is prog.py, optional argument, positional argument, blah, 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 blah. You could go and do like have a -c. I normally have a -c on my build.py scripts, which will add no cache to the argv. Which is a way, you should do it every now and then. You should do a no cache every now and then. What no cache does is it starts from the very top, and there's a different thing you have to do to pull a new Debian, which I won't get into, but it will invalidate the cache from this line onwards, and it will redo this. Importantly, it will redo this. So, if you feel like spending an hour rebuilding your super awesome image that has a whole bunch of stuff in it, and you want to know that you've got the latest version of AutoConf, Bison, Build Essential, curl, blah blah blah, locate, wget, xcel. If you want to know that you're getting the brand newest stuff from Debian and you don't want to just redo the last few lines, you should do --no-cache when you do your Docker build. It will redo the whole file, and it will do the apt-get update, and it will get the very newest version of everything. Which is nice, because normally your host system, you do an apt-get update, apt-get upgrade every couple of weeks or every couple of days, yeah? With Docker, you just go and throw the whole thing in the bin and start from the top with a fresh update and a fresh install, which means that you don't have pollution from months or even years of update, upgrade. When your image starts to smell like it's a bit out of date, you just throw it in the bin and redo the whole thing with a --no-cache. Fresh spanking new Debian box with the latest software. Very cool stuff. That's big call from someone with a name like Singularity. I think hyperconverging is the Singularity's job. Yeah, good point, Kane. Is that the Bash RC stuff? I think it is. Yes, it's exactly. rbenv is almost exactly like virtualenv, except it's automatic, invisible, and it's for. Actually, it's almost exactly like virtualenv. Oh, then's fighting words, Infinite. Docopt, hey? Is this an argparse alternative? This actually looks really nice. Right, so you actually write it. It's almost like a natural language sort of thing. You actually write the usage and the options and it kind of figures it out from there, is that right? Or is there an actual language to write it in? Looks like there's no language. Looks like you just write the help file or write the usage and it works backwards and figures it out. That's really nice. That's cool, Kane. I'm pretty firmly stuck in my argparse ways, but I'll add that to the list of things to investigate. Thanks for that. Unwoven Sleeve has a question. Can you explain what Linux is? Hang on, let's see if anyone's answered that. Brand new stuff. Hey, screw you, Volko. Screw you. You know what I meant. Alright then, I take it back, Volko. Much love. Unwoven Sleeve. No, I'm not interested in helping host a Minecraft server. Sorry, we're mostly focused on computer security here. If you want to hang out and learn some computer security stuff, we'd love to have you. I'm not into sysadmining or setting up Minecraft servers. Is this a troll, Unwoven? This is starting to sound like it smell a little bit like a troll. That's cool, Kane. I'll look into it. Oh, Volko, that sucks. I'm sure you've got backups, right? There you go. Oof. That hurts. Oh, well, if you weren't backing it up, it couldn't have been important, right? No, I can't, Unwoven. If we can stay on topic, that'd be cool. If not, let's look at timeouts, hey. If you're being serious, what's a Linux? Linux is a kernel, and then there's a operating system that grew out of it called GNU/Linux. It's a free open source software operating system for computers. What do you reckon, troll? Singularity's on it. All right. Let's be nice for now, Unwoven. If you start to sound more and more like a troll, then Singularity's got the pokey sword. Not a troll. I'm going to leave that in Singularity's more than capable hands. Okay, cool. It looks like we've built some stuff. We're installing Ruby. We installed Ruby. Blah, 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 blah. So now if we do a build, if we do an instantiate, if we just go cd opt metasploit, if we just do IRB, the interactive Ruby REPL thing, we've got an IRB. If we do ruby-v, we've got Ruby 2.3.3. If we cd just to our home and do ruby-v, then rbenv complains that Ruby was not found. The Ruby command exists in these Ruby versions. If you really need to, you can do rbenv. You can do rbenv shell to set this shell-specific Ruby version, 2.3.3. Then you can do ruby-v, and you can see that using the rbenv shell syntax, you can actually set the Ruby version that you want to be using for the time being. However, you normally don't need to do that. Rbenv shell help shell. Can we unset that? Rbenv shell unset ruby-v. Oops. Yep. Okay, we're back to not having a Ruby. So with rbenv installed and kind of embedded within your shell, then it does some hooking. If we go echo $path, we've got this shims directory. If we go and have a look inside shims, we've got a couple of Ruby specific commands, which are these symlinks? Nope, they're actual shell scripts. If we go on cat bang $/Ruby, it's a shell script. Basically, whenever you do Ruby or whenever a program that's installed does a shebang line of userbin Ruby, then this Ruby here will be what's executed, and it's just a shell script that basically is a shim that will apply the needful Ruby for that situation. So if you're only in your home directory, there's no real situation that rbenv knows to handle until such time as you do this. But you don't really need to do that. Because if you just do ~opt/metasploit framework/msf console, then rbenv will figure out that based on the .ruby version file in this directory, msf console requires Ruby 2.3.3, and it will automatically switch to it for you, which is really nice. I find this to be nicer than the way that RVM does its hooking. It hooks CD, so you have to CD into the directory you want, and then it is fine. With rbenv, you can just go and hit up the file from anywhere on the file system using a path like this, and it will do the needful switching of rubies behind the scenes for you. I'm pretty tolerant, as you can tell on Woven. Alt F4. The trolling has started. I'm just going to grab my popcorn. I pronounce it GNOME. Like GNU. Alright, I'm working. Let's see how we go, hey? If you're gonna behave, then it's more than my pleasure to have you around, and welcome. How long have I been doing streams? 5 or 6 months now, I think, on and off. We accept the creative troll. We accept the trolling that turns into friendship. Alright, so, what are we up to? We've got a Ruby install, we've got rbenv doing the needful switching of rubies behind the scenes. Metasploit, when we try to run it, says it requires the bundler gem to be installed, blah blah blah. So let's have a look at what's going on. Let's go back to our Metasploit guide. Where's our Metasploit guide? What does Metasploit want us to do next? There it is. We're not going to use rvm, we're using something else. rbenv. So all this here is we haven't done that yet. We need to come back to the gem install bundler. Otherwise, this is all rvm. We can skip it. But we need to do this still. We don't need to do this. We did this with bash rc. We've done this, and we can see that rbenv is doing the job for us. So we need to install bundler and then do this. So as this suggests, and as we've discussed, bundler is responsible for installing all the gems or libraries, the Ruby libraries, for Metasploit as needed. So we need to install bundler with gem install bundler. Then we need to do a bundle install. So how are we going to do this? I mean, in the context of a Docker file, we'll do it separate to this, because this rbenv install took a really long time. That took a couple of minutes because it actually had to download and compile Ruby for us. So we don't want to invalidate this cache or anything above it unless we want to sit through this compile again. So now we need to install bundler, install MSF's gems. Let's just run through this interactively. So Metasploit requires the bundler gem, but if we do gem, then rbenv complains because we haven't actually activated a Ruby version yet. So we could, in the context of a Docker file, how do we do? We've got two options. Either we can do the rbenv shell trick. We could do an rbenv shell and then do gem install bundler, or we could do cd:/opt/metasploit and gem install bundler. That's another option. Which one am I going to choose? Which one feels less hacky? The CD thing feels kind of hacky. The shell thing feels overly verbose. Let's do the shell one. So inside the Docker file, we're going to want to do rbenv shell cat opt metasploit framework .ruby, can't type at the microphone, version. So we want to do that. That works. Then we want to do gem install bundler. That works. Then we want to do bundle -h Oh, that looks really messy. We can do bundle help install. I think it's -- gem file equals. Yeah, -- gem file equals the location of the gem file which bundler should use. Blah 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 blah. All right, so we can do what did we do? We did that. Then we did that. And then we want to do bundle install -- gem file equals / opt / metasploit framework / gem file. And then bundler should go off and yep, start downloading stuff from rubygems.org and start installing each of the gems. This looks sensible. We had two options. Instead of doing this, we could have done a cd into this directory and then done gem install bundler and then just done bundle install, because bundle install by default looks for / gem file. But I chose to be a bit more overly verbose about things. So that'll do. Everyone's got their own way that they'd like to do it. This is how I want to do it, and this is my stream, damn it. So we're going to do run that. Oops, that's too many tabs, spaces, and that. So install bundler and install Metasploit's gems. We're going to run the shell thing to switch to the Ruby version. We're going to do gem install bundler. We're going to do bundle install gem file equals the path to the gem file. And that should install all of Metasploit's gems for us. Let's go and redo a build and see who's hollering in chat. That's not what I wanted. There we go. Troll is a friend you haven't fed yet. I like it. I like it. Bockhand, nothing tonight. Tonight we're just going through the process for the sake of people who might want to use Metasploit framework in the context of Dockerizing it, and also for people who haven't actually gone through the process of installing Metasploit in a dev environment, for people who want to be able to contribute things like their modules or things like bug fixes back to the project. We'll use Metasploit on other nights, but for tonight, this is just a purely learning, informative thing for a couple of reasons. The purposes are in the description, but basically learning how to Dockerize your applications, learning how to install Metasploit in a dev context, learning how to use things like rbenv, because it can be a bit daunting. The comparison to virtualenv is bang on, but a lot of people kind of go, why do I need software that's been git cloned and put in my bash RC to use Ruby? So I wanted to explain why and how that can be done. So it's a learning thing for people who are curious about how to Dockerize all of what I just said in the description. Hack this site. There are some cool. I think I've got. Do I have hack this site? I've got it in the description below. If anyone hasn't read the description, read the description. I think I've got hack this site in ideas for future streams. You're welcome, Unwoven. If you're not trolly, you're more than welcome. If you start being trolly, we might have to have a long, hard discussion about why you're here. Really, it's up to the. It's up to chat. There's a lot of good people in here. If they don't want to deal with whatever you're bringing, you might have to have a discussion. Bockhand, I'm writing a script to automate the installation. Correct, yeah. I'm writing a Docker file. So a Docker file is how you actually define the steps for building a Docker image. So yeah, we're writing a script, a Docker file, exactly. No, I don't, Infinite. I do use Docker Compose, but it's not for setting up pen testing environments. First of all, I don't do pen testing. I do software security stuff. I use it at work for setting up complex local dev environments. Yeah, for dev environments, it would be really good. I have used Docker Compose a grand total of 1 time so far. I plan to use it more. I have used it to construct capture the flag challenges. So I've actually got a Docker Composed CTF challenge that will be used at B-Sides Canberra. So if you're going to be at B-Sides doing the CTF, I won't speak of the challenge in interests of fairness and sportsmanship, but I've got a challenge there that is being Docker Composed. So Docker Compose is great for when you want multiple containers to be spun up and interacting with each other in their own kind of little... I think that Docker Compose puts stuff in its own network. If you Docker Compose a stack that has a Postgres or a Mongo or a Redis data store, it has a application backend or multiple application backends, that has an Nginx front end, and kind of you can define all those things and their relationships in a YAML file and then Docker Compose, and it brings them all up at once. Really nice stuff. This is my own machine. I'm using a Docker... Ursi is running its own Docker container. This here is a Docker container. This here is my local host. And the build got unhappy. We'll look at that in a second. Exactly. A Docker image is like a binary build of something, whereas the Docker file is kind of like the source code that if you gave someone the Docker file, they could probably rerun it themselves and build their own thing from the Docker file. Good night, Kane. Good to have you around. Catch you next time, eh? Singularity nailed that. Syncs, it is going to be a nice long answer. It is a pretty wide range of rather specialist areas. So if you're interested and you want to make a big fort that no one can enter, if it's a hobbyist sense, do boot to root challenges on vulnhub.com, do CTF challenges, do things like hack this site, and you'll pick up bits and pieces about software security and system security from those sorts of things. If you're wanting to do it for a job, then that sort of activity lends well to being the red team, which is penetration testing. It also leads pretty well to being the blue team, which is network defense and defending the company, especially since you say make a big fort so no one can enter it. If you're interested in blue team activities, there's a whole different range of things you can do. You can design secure systems and networks, you can implement secure systems and networks, you can do network monitoring, you can do forensics and incident response so that once someone's broken in, you figure out exactly what they did. Again, all these are their own kind of discipline, and you kind of get to pick what you really want to do and make the most of it. Absolutely, Volko. If it's something that's within my capability, then I would love to. So send me a Twitter DM, send me a Twitch whisper, let's get something hooked up. Bonus points if you call it totally not ransomware. Volko, I will be trusting that it's not nasty. I will be doing my own analysis of it beforehand. If it's a huge binary that I can't quickly get a handle on and see that it's not malicious, I won't do it. So it needs to be something that I can see isn't going to hurt me. Why did we get this error? What went wrong? rbenv not found. Because it's not a interactive shell that properly didn't source the bash RC. That can be fixed. We have the technology. .//.bashrc will go and pull in the bash RC that has had all this magic added to it to cause rbenv to be lit up. Easy done. Let's redo the build. Maybe not. Why is bin shell unhappy about that? Why is bin shell unhappy? If I've sourced bash rc, why can't it see rbenv? Does the Bourne shell not support the dot syntax? Bourne shell source. No, dot is the compatible way of sourcing stuff. What is the Bourne shell unhappy about? Let's dot that file and then do echo $path. Let's see what we get. It's not actually picking up the stuff that's in bash rc. That's alarming. That's a gap in my understanding. We can fix this by, instead of doing rbenv, no, we need the shims as well. I was going to say we could just hard code the path to rbenv. Give me 1 sec. I'm gonna go to super secret squirrel mode, and I'm gonna see if I can take a quick peek at my Docker file that I know works. Let's see how I do the rbenv stuff. Okay, I see how I defeated this demon. And I mean demon in the bad thing sense of the word, not the service sense of the word. In my own Docker file, what I did, and this is nasty, is bash -c. Quote the whole thing. I use double quotes in my own Docker file. Why would I use double quotes though? Because I don't need this path anymore. Yeah, I don't think I want to double quotes. Let's do single quotes. Bash. So we're going to do bash -c and actually run all of this inside an instance of bash. Maybe when you do run, looks like this dot operator on this bash rc file isn't actually being picked up properly. Go and do some nice indenting of stuff. Get rid of this. There we go. So we can kind of see this is a block. This here is a block of code that will be passed to bash. So bash will be responsible for doing this source, and then the rbenv as needed. Do we even need this if we're going to do a bash -c? Let's leave it out and see what happens, because bash, I would think if you're doing bash -c, it might pick up your bash rc anyway. Probably not, because I've learnt that bash rc is rarely honoured and needs to be explicitly pulled in a lot of cases. Alright, so that failed. Let's bring that dot back in. That failed too. Why'd that fail? bash minus c dot tilde slash dot bash rc. Anyone see why that wouldn't work? Volco, I normally run them inside Docker containers, but I still don't want my IP address getting out, because then in comes the DDoS from people like Unwoven. Yeah, escaping new lines is actually to make Docker happy when it's parsing the Docker file. Alright, Unwoven's got some time in the corner. Is the parse stuff being catted to bash rc correctly? I think so, because when we were explicitly... yeah, Nico, I've given him a 10-minute cooldown. We'll see if he wants to be a part, or she. We'll see if they want to be a part of it when they come back. Peach 2 at Singularity. I think so, because Jeff, when we were actually running it using instantiate.py, everything was there just fine. For example, instantiate rbenv. Oops, rbenv is there. I don't know why it's not there when we do bash minus c dot tilde dot bash rc. I'm gonna bring the privacy screen back up. I'm just gonna check check my known good Docker file once more. rbenv. Aha! I think I know what's going on, because I see a difference in my known good file. Let's instantiate real quick. Let's look at bash rc. I bet there's something in here that's dying out early. Yeah. So bash rc actually has its own little guard thing at the top here. To say that because we're not running it in an interactive sense, don't do anything. Is there a way? Let's not do that. Do it in here. Man bash. Is there a way to fake being interactive? So dash C is to provide a whole bunch of commands. Dash I, force the shell to be interactive. This is getting super hacky, but let's do that. Let's do bash minus I to make it fully, to actually make it an interactive shell, and then run the command dot the bash rc. Switch the version of Ruby, gem install, bundle install. This little dash I should prevent that guard from actually causing a exit. Let's see how we go. This is getting hackier by the minute. This is why I don't publish Docker files, because they end up just being hack upon hack upon hack to get something that I'm happy with the output of, but would be ashamed to publish the source code of. That's why I don't publish my Docker files. One day I'll learn how to Docker like an adult. So we got some stuff on stder, but it looks like things are still happening. There we go, installed bundler. We're off to the races. I mean, this works. It's just that it's hacky, and if things go wrong, I know where to go looking and to how to debug my own piles of hot garbage, and I don't want to force that upon the world. So now what Bundler is doing is it's installing all the different gems that the Metasploit gem file says are required for running Metasploit. So that should give us the needful. Let's see if there's anything else in the Metasploit guide that we should be paying attention to. So right now we're doing the bundle install, and then we should be able to run MSF console. Optionally, we probably should go and Postgres got installed. If we go back up to the top of this dev guide, by the way, to get this link, to get a link to this, just search Google for Metasploit dev install, and you'll find this guide. We installed Postgres up the top as part of the dependencies. What we need to do though is we need to, because we're in Docker, services don't start up. We've seen this. Bash starts up, and that's it. So you may need to find a solution for automatically starting up daemons upon container creation. Otherwise, you may just need to get in the habit of actually explicitly starting the Postgres service upon starting the container. And then you should probably read this and create the database user, create database.yaml in /msf4/database.yaml with the password for Postgres, which you created up here probably. Maybe. Yeah, here's the maybe that's the password. No, I think it prompts you for a password. Put it in there, blah blah blah. And then we should be able to run Metasploit with database support. I don't use database support in Metasploit. It lets you do things like loot hosts and automatically lets you do things like run your port scans straight from Metasploit and put the output of those port scans into the Metasploit database so that you can query it from the Metasploit console. It's a little convenience thing. I'm sure it's probably useful for large-scale pen tests, but I don't do large-scale pen tests. If you have a need for the Metasploit database, read this to actually get it up and running, or just go and use Kali or something. And then we get into the whole Git thing, and this is important for if you want to contribute back to the project. Blah, 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 blah. This is all developer guide stuff for how to actually contribute to the project. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Nonsense, nonsense. That's it. Cool. So really, we've just got to do this, let this bundle install finish. And we should be off to the races. We should be able to run MSF console. And the bundle install is still going. Maybe some other time we might want to do a bit of a deep dive on doing things like fancying up that build.py script and doing things like adding argpars in so that you can specify with the command line flag, hey, I want to do it clean, or hey, I want you to go and do a git pull on Metasploit. We may also want to dress up the instantiate.py script and maybe add in some volumes. Or maybe we want to be able to have, I do this for a different image, have a JSON file on the file system that actually specifies all the engagements you're on right now. And say you got the Acme engagement, you got the Contoso engagement, and actually have a JSON file that says, for the Acme engagement, map these 2 volumes through to the container. For the Contoso engagement, map these 5 volumes through to the Metasploit container. And then dress up the instantiate.py script to read that JSON file, parse it, and then based on a command line parameter saying, hey, I want you to instantiate Acme, it will go Acme, it'll look at the JSON file and go, aha, for Acme I need to pass these 2 directories through to the container at that path, and will automatically do your volume mapping stuff depending on the task you're performing that day. There may be some other runtime things you need to do to the Metasploit based on different engagements that you may want to put the configuration for in a JSON file, and then have instantiate.py consume that JSON file and react appropriately to whichever command line flag you've given on that day. That's going to be for another night, because I'm kind of keen to have my Mars bar and head to bed. Looks like this build worked just fine. If we do instantiate ~opt/metasploit/msf console, cross our fingers, starting Metasploit framework console. And there we go. Use exploit multi-handler. Set payload to be Linux x86. Interpreter /reverse TCP. Set, whoops, go IPA. Set lhost to 172.18.0.8. Set lport to 4444. Whoops, I set that lhost wrong. .8. Set the lport. Set exit on session false. Exploit -j. There we go. We've got a reverse TCP handler listening on this IP address and this port. We can now go back to Diablo, my local host, and we can netcat 172.18.0.8. Can't type. Port 4444. Pipe it into a hex viewer. And there we go. We've got shellcode. A lot of shellcode. Interpreter is big. How big's interpreter? 1.4 megabytes. I don't think, yeah, you can't fit on a floppy disk, can you? So there you go. We've got Metasploit fully Dockerized, and because we were just netcatting and then hex viewing the shellcode, Metasploit complains that it couldn't actually establish a session. There we go. All done. Any questions, queries, concerns before I go enjoy what I believe to be a well-deserved and well-earned Mars bar? Yeah, I think we covered that. Nico, maybe it's accepted answer. Yeah, it's because bash RC explicitly had a guard up the top to say, if I'm not interactive, then do nothing and exit out. So yes, bash RC is always sourced, but it explicitly bails out if it's not interactive. There you go. Jeff's on board. I don't know, Nico. I don't know. Yeah, Linux indeed. I'm calling bullshit on that singularity. It's quicker to download a Docker image. Because once you've downloaded Debian, or even if you haven't downloaded Debian, it's only like, I think, 100 or 200 megs of even probably smaller, about 100 megs of a Docker image. And then it's sudo -g docker run ti Debian bash, and up she comes. So I'm calling bullshit on your... Yeah, it's probably more difficult, but it scales more nicely. You can write Docker files. Docker files are fantastic. And I think it's actually much better than the whole VM sprawl that we otherwise tend to have. Why do I feel like Docker is a software hypervisor on top of a software hypervisor? I don't know, Nico, because it's not a hypervisor at all. It runs container processes on your host's kernel. So it's actually less of a hypervisor than something like VirtualBox. I don't know if this is the trolls coming out to try to get me to bite, but it's working. Docker is containerization, and containerization shares the kernel, so it's actually lighter weight and not at all a hypervisor, let alone a hypervisorception situation. To update is just a git pull on host. Mine now. Host on host machine now. Got it. To update Metasploit, Teasing aside, I do like the idea. Good. Stop. No, you can keep on teasing. It's what keeps this interesting. Watching Justin get angry and flustered and bite and take the bait. So Jeff, to update, what we would do, it's a good question, is we would... So here's all the files we need. Here's our little build scripts. Here's our Docker file. The Docker file said, I'm assuming that Metasploit framework is available in the build context. But correct, if we wanted to update Metasploit, we'd cd to Metasploit framework, do a git pull, hit enter. I'm not going to do it, and I'll tell you why in a second. But to do a git pull would download any changes that Metasploit have made since the last pull, and it's a much smaller download than downloading all of the Kali updated package. The reason I'm not going to do it is because... Where's my copy? Here's my copy. Even if there's no changes, if you do a git pull inside a Git repository, inside a Docker build context, even if there's nothing to download, Git still touches a file in .git. Git goes and just goes like boop on a file. I don't know if it even changes the context, the contents, but it changes the file stamp. Maybe it changes the contents in a small way, but it just goes like boop on the nose of a file. And as soon as Docker sees that any file inside the Metasploit framework directory has changed in any way, even just a timestamp, it goes, oh shit, we've got to invalidate the cache as of this line, redo the copy, and then redo all of this. As we saw, this Ruby build took a couple of minutes. This bundle install took a couple of minutes, and I want to go get my Mars bar, so I'm not going to sit through a couple more minutes of build. What you could do, however, is let's quit out of Metasploit, let's exit out of this. If you really need to go and grab the latest and greatest Metasploit on any given day, and you didn't want to sit there and do a 10-minute rebuild, you can just pop into the, you can instantiate a container, cd to opt Metasploit, and do your git pull from here. And we've got a problem. We've got a problem. Metasploit framework is owned by root. I'm surprised that didn't actually cause us to fail at doing the bundle install, because I would have thought gemfile.lock would have been touched. We have an issue. We can't do a git pull, because even though we're inside Justin's home directory, and Metasploit framework is owned by Justin, the contents of Metasploit framework are owned by root. Did I forget to do a chown, or did I forget to... Yep, I forgot to do a recursive chown right here. Which is probably why gemfile.lock actually probably could get dooted, but maybe. Let's vim gemfile.lock. Oops. Okay. Yeah. Justin can actually modify that. That answers a question I had. Justin can modify the gemfile.lock, which is why the bundle install didn't fail. But still, this is bad news. And what we should have done is, what is the recursive chown? Is it small r or big R? Big R. We should have done a chown dash capital R, Justin to Metasploit framework. That's my bad. That's fine. That one there doesn't need to be recursive because we just made the directory, so it's going to be empty. There's a chown there. Yeah, so that chown should have been recursive. And because of that, we can't update Metasploit on the fly right now. And I'm going to get my Mars bar. I'm not going to sit through another build. We'll hang out and chat for a few minutes, but I'm not going to redo the build. Actually, you know what? Let's chat for a few minutes and let's redo the build. Was there anything else I wanted to redo the build because of? Yeah, Docker sprays my terminals with error messages sometimes. I've got to get to the bottom of why it's doing that. Was there anything I wanted to do a rebuild for? Not really. Let's go and do a rebuild real quick. Let's exit that and do the build. And that should properly chown Metasploit framework so I can do a quick update as a demo. Yeah, look how easy Docker is, and it's also like spewing these unregistered net devices on all my open terminals. Indeed, Das Trolley, I am from Queensland. Enjoy your Mars bar. Joan wasn't. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Shame. Singularity's gonna all out. Sweet. Really, Jeff? Really? That's alright. Make me learn my lesson the hard way. As I tell people, as soon as they've kind of spent enough energy and effort on tackling a problem, especially when it's a really silly reason why they're having that problem, I always say, good, you're not going to make that mistake again. Now that you've spent like 6 hours struggling with something that wasn't building or wasn't doing this just because you're a derp, you'll never make that mistake again. So, going to turn around, Jeff. You actually did a good thing. Thank you. Alright, so we're installing Ruby. This build's going to take a few minutes. Any questions, queries, concerns about anything that was covered tonight? I would hate to leave anyone wondering. Such a jerk, I know, right? Let's quickly go back. That went down the wrong way. I'm going to close these tabs while the build happens. Jess Frizzell's blog. This is a fantastic post on how to Dockerize applications. Go check it out. This is Docker Hub. The Docker file reference is super valuable. It explains how to use all the different bits and pieces of all the different directives you can have in Docker files. Definitely worth reading. Docker file best practices. Definitely worth reading. It covers a lot of hints, tips, tricks, and good things to do when writing Docker files. Read that. The dev setup guide, really important, helps you get your dev environment up and running. rbenv is good stuff. Ruby build is good stuff. argparse, no subprocess, it's important. Don't use system. This is how you can find the path to a directory that contains the Python script that's running. This is how you do os.chdir to change directories. Theo has good thoughts about virtualization. I'm going to try to tidy up the Docker file and put stuff here in the twitch.tv, the Justin Stephen repo on GitHub. WP scan is written in Ruby. It's like the credits at the end of the thing, you know. Justin is actually dressed by Rapid7 tonight. I thought I should wear my Metasploit shirt. I thought it would be fitting. argparse is cool, but Kane has something that's even cooler called dockopt. If you're looking to make a command line interface to your Python script, you should check those two things out. And then the dot file is better than the source operator. Build is still going. No, I haven't really followed the Docker crowd properly because I don't Docker properly. I basically figured out how to abuse it for my own personal gain. Jess's stuff is all really good. Follow Jess on Twitter. She's an absolute riot. Jess Fraz Twitter. If you use Twitter, click this link and click follow. Don't think, just do. My pleasure, Nico. I'll definitely keep doing them. I enjoy doing them. I sometimes struggle to think of new topics and how to approach them, which is why tonight was a bit of a all over the place thing. But I hope people learn bits and pieces. The build is still going. I'm gonna leave that build to run. I'm gonna call it a night. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I will definitely keep doing streams. I enjoy doing it. Singularity, no, I don't have any other Docker evangelists that I haven't really gone looking for them. If anyone knows of any good Docker evangelists, let me know, because I'd love to actually know who to listen to so that I start Dockering like an adult instead of just kludging stuff together till it works. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is much appreciated that you've all been here. You're all very beautiful people, and I appreciate your company very much. Hope you have a good week. We'll be back on Sunday. I think I'm free on Sunday. Hopefully we'll be back on Sunday. I don't know what I'm doing just yet. If you've got any ideas of things to do, let me know. Thanks, Jeff, and catch everyone on Sunday.